Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Yorkshire Gamer. And today is episode 51. And Merry Christmas to everyone. And if you're listening to this in July, it's a lesson for you to listen to it when it first comes out. It is the Christmas edition, and of course, it's a Brews in the Binyard episode. And for those who've not listened to these before, a little bit of a warning in that the language and the discussions get a little bit looser than they would do on a normal, more formal episode. So don't listen to it in the car with your kids, would be my recommendation. And unfortunately, tonight, Sean Clark, our usual third seat or first seat, whichever way you want to look at it, is not available, and we have got Iain McDonald from Flags of War has stepped in and has filled the third chair for our evening's entertainment. Before I begin, I just want to thank everyone who has listened to the podcast over the last year. It's been a fantastic year for the Yorkshire Gamer podcast, and got off to a slow start. I didn't do anything for the first 6 weeks. I burnt myself out in Christmas 22. But then I had Martin Kelly on from America talking about big gaming at American conventions in episode 39. And Steve Shan, a good friend of mine, in episode 40. We spoke about many things. He's a painter and an author and a big knowledgeable person on the Franco-Prussian War. Then Nick Schofield, we had a fantastic episode where we chatted about the Papal Zouaves and the St. Patrick's Battalion and the Papal States in the Risorgimento. One of my favourite episodes of all time, that one. I really enjoyed chatting with Nick. And then a big coup, I managed to get George Nafziger, author, King of the Order of Battle, on episode 42. And despite some technical issues, we managed to get a decent episode of that. Then the wonderful Paul Thompson was on from Early War Miniatures with loads of great stories, really entertaining episode. I went big by going small with Pete Berry in episode 44 from Bacchus Miniatures. And then the most Yorkshire podcast ever, Mark Hydes from Sheffield, painter and all-round entertainer, came on the show for episode 45. 46 was the Summer Brews in the Binyard, and then we went all naval wargaming in 47 with David Manley, and then we went really geeky off table with Peter Thompson from Pro Art. We spent 2 hours talking about paintbrushes, and then a cracking couple of episodes to end the year with Dave Brown and then the two fat lardies. So, and in between the various sections of the show, you'll hear Christmas messages from quite a few of them. We've got over 110,000 downloads now on all the formats it's on. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas to every single person who listens to this or any of the other episodes. And I hope you have a fantastic new year and you carry on listening to this podcast. And I don't ask any money or anything else, just that you enjoy it and enjoy big gaming and enjoy painting or doing whatever you're doing while you're listening to this podcast. So tonight's episode, as I said, Iain McDonald stepped in for Sean, and unfortunately, I've had one of the technical issues that I occasionally get. And for the first part of the podcast, the track that had Alex on didn't record, so I've had to kind of cobble together the first part with just bits of me and Iain. So hopefully it'll make sense. I've tried to edit it in such a way that the conversation goes, but a couple of the conversations might start and you might think, where did that come from? But please run with it. There's some funny bits in there. And then once we get on to part two, which is if you've listened before for the Christmas edition, it's a review of the Room 101 entries. And then we have discussion on nationalities in film and television. Say no more. And then finally, it's your questions at the end, and all that as recorded with Alex. So that's brilliant news. So sit back. It's probably just over 3 hours, this one. So as usual, get your paintbrushes ready, chuck your wet palette out of the window, and get yourself a cup of tea. And without further ado, here's the interview.
So here we are at Wembley Stadium with the Twin Towers towering above us and the Jules Rimet trophy still gleaming in our hot, sweaty little palms. And Nick, 30 years of hurt never stopped you dreaming, but do you have a message for Yorkshire gamer Ken and his little gamerettes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's very much been a year of two halves. And you know what? The boys done good, smashed it in the back of the net, bring home the trophies, 1-0, and happy Christmas to all them geezers what is in the Yorkshire Gamers podcast community.
Right, well, I don't really know how to follow up on that, but happy Christmas to you, Ken, and to all your listeners. And we hope you have had a great 2023 and are looking forward to a fabulous and very prosperous new year. Happy Christmas and a happy new year to you all.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to the Christmas edition of the Yorkshire Gamer podcast, or Brews in the Binyard, as it's better known. And earlier today, I was speaking to a fan of the show, Cliff Richard. And Cliff said to me, he said, Ken, I said, I've got a theme tune for you, but I've not had time to record it. But I've done some lyrics. So I've got them here from Cliff. So you might recognise the tune. 28 mil is king, the wargamers sing. WRG is past, there's a new beginning. Dreams of grass tufts, dreams of snow. But be careful with the terps, or your hands will be aglow. Christmas time, mistletoe and wine. Children painting skulls in Games Workshop land. With round ice on the fire and avocados on the tree, it's time to rejoice in our time-honoured hobby. A time for Renaissance, a time for medieval, a time for pipe blocks, but not for weird shit. Paint and varnish and glue art forever. Big games for all. Just follow Yorkshire Gamer. Christmas time, mistletoe and wine, children painting skulls in Games Workshop land, with wet pallets on the fire and mushy peas in the tree. It's time to rejoice in our time-honoured hobby. It's a time for gaming, a time for campaigning, a time for card deck games, and a time for board games. Christmas is brews, Christmas is bins, a time for fighting and podcasts to begin. So Christmas time, mistletoe and wine, children painting skulls in Games Workshop land. My dice are on fire and Bear Dog is in the tree. It's time to rejoice, our time-honoured hobby. Wow. Thank you, Cliff. Thank you, Cliff. Yeah, sometimes.
How long did that take you?
About half an hour this afternoon. It didn't take me, Iain. Cliff. It was Cliff. Cliff said, fuck you, be telling me Santa Claus isn't real next.
You could have at least done a jingle for you.
So right, so it's time to meet the boys, because the boys are here, the boys to entertain you. And joining me tonight on this biannual podcast with a podcast special are two co-hosts. One is familiar, one not so. You may have heard his voice in the background. In the green waste bin corner, we have our resident star of the YouTubes. With over 1 million subscribers to his storm of steals, he lowers himself to my level twice a year. Of course, it's our very own Alex Sutherland. Hello, Alex. Something new is happening in the bottle recycling bin. There's a rustling amongst a group of bottles, all marked Bookfast. By day, he's a mild-mannered bank employee. But at night, he dons a cape in a phone box and becomes Flags of War Man, covering wargame units throughout the land in colourful banners. He's, of course, no stranger to the show. So please welcome Iain McDonald of Flags of War. How you doing, mate?
I don't know what to say after that introduction. I really don't. But thanks for asking me on. Not too sure I can live up to Sean, but I'll try my best.
No, well, unfortunately, Sean's not available to be with us tonight, but Iain has very kindly agreed to take up the seat, and he's got in. Yeah.
I said the same to my friend. I speak to one of my mates today, and I says, "Oh, I'm on this show, and he's like, "Oh, excellent! I love it. And hope you enjoy." He says, "I enjoy it," and I says, "You won't after this."
Well, you've gone all out, mate. You've got a Christmas hat on.
Yep, got my Star Wars jumper on, my Christmas
and
jumper.
a Star Wars jumper as well, which is
Yeah.
quite impressive. I'm impressed with that. There is a little bit of green on that jumper.
I
Iain.
know, that's okay. It's
okay.
Battle of Endor. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Alex is looking confused. Green is Celtic, Alex. Yeah, and Iain's Sports Rangers. No, that's another football club. So we normally start. To be fair, we've got. I forgot to ask the listeners for questions, and I remembered like Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. I went, "Oh fuck, we've got no questions." So thank you very much to the listeners, because you have supplied more questions than you normally do, and some of them are quite good. And I'm not going to say. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you which ones are shit, but maybe we will when we go through them. Well, I think I've cottoned on to something. People only sort of respond when there's an urgency. And if I go, shit, I'm recording tomorrow night, I need some questions, they all come in. If I go, I'm recording in 3 weeks' time, everyone goes, you know what, fuck this. Yeah. And then they forget, yeah. A bit like the Christmas messages from my previous guests. We've kind of not got as many as we normally get. But that I think that reflects the age of some of my guests. And when you say, "Oh, you've just got to record it on your phone and send it to me," huh? Yeah, and then you say, "Get your son or your daughter to do it," and they go, "Well, they're 73." All right. I'm like, all right, get your granddaughter to do it. Oh, they're in the 50s. So next year, New Year resolution to have younger guests on who are able to record Christmas messages. In fact, I think it will be a thing to put on, the application form that people have to fill out to come on the show.
That's a big thing, isn't it? It's always trying to get the younger ones in to the historical side.
There's not even less so in big historical wargaming.
Yeah,
they've all been sort of brought into that smaller game size off the back of 40k, etc. Games Workshop bastards. Harley the devil
started already.
It started already. My last year, bloody Sean brought his bloody Leviathan. He had all this 40k stuff. It's like, what's this?
I've never ever played it. Never played it. Never painted it. Never played it.
What's wrong with not changing rules for 30 years? I like that.
Does it have charts?
Charts, yes. Penetration tables. Love them. Anyway, Iain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rich did mention Razzle.
Oh,
so yeah, but it's not that penetration table. It's armor penetration table. Big year for you, Iain. You've had lots of stuff, Kickstarters and bloody God knows what.
Yeah, it's just non-stop. Trying to balance far too many things at the same time, and try to bring out new stuff all the time. And it takes it's a balancing act, because it has downsides to try to I don't get as many flags out because of it, and that's a big downside to it, because you're either try to come up with new ideas for new figures, or writing rules, or try to get Kickstarters out, or posting orders. So actually looking at changing it for next year, so watch this space kind of thing. With it.
Yeah.
Try to free up my time. It's just becoming too much with the kids and stuff.
So you're getting the kids to do it?
I wish. I tried out with my daughter, and like within one of the Kickstarters, and I think within the first week it was like, I've got this sword missing, and I've got this list missing. It's like, right, that's it. Just stop packing. Yeah, but she's 18, so she's not got an excuse.
Oh, if she's 18, she should be able to do it. I thought they were like 5 or 6.
No, the other ones are. Well, William, he's 4 tomorrow, and little Iain, he's only 2. So they've got a couple of years before I can start getting them working for me.
I was watching a video on YouTube yesterday, just one of those random ones that came up, of a 4-year-old lad playing drums with an orchestra. So if he can play drums with an orchestra, then I'm suggesting William can pack things.
Yeah. We definitely don't have any that kind of talent running through any part of our family ever. You get these child geniuses all over the world. There's certainly never any in ours.
Yeah, but you just need a child packer. You don't need a child genius, do you?
Yeah, that's it.
The figures that you need to pack, the thing that it needs to go in, a jelly tot.
A jelly tot for everyone.
And then figures, package, jelly tot.
Oh, that's a good tactic. Yeah. It's like training a dog.
See, we could take it to a Wargames show, see all these figures start slavering.
Yeah, folk wondering why their figures are covered in sugar for the jelly tots.
You'd have to have a diabetic range as well, wouldn't you? Do not lick these figures; may cause diabetic reaction.
That's I always get that at the Wargames shows, because I always give out free Haribo in orders, and people are like, "No, can't take them. Diabetic." I'm like, oh. I've not got any alternatives.
But those Haribo are ridiculously full of sugar, aren't they? They're just mad. Yeah. People used to have them on nights when I used to work shifts, and obviously I am diabetic. And I didn't realize how much sugar there was in them, and so I started to feel faint.
Yeah, they're very high in sugar. Like, I've got a friend who does like long distance cycling, and that's when he takes the little Haribos to just like a shot.
Wow.
He'll take it while he's cycling as a shot just to keep him going.
Oh my word. That is absolutely mad. Absolutely mad. Iain, I saw you around the country quite a bit this year. You'd done quite a few shows.
I try to do a few more next year as well. I think we're trying to go down to York just as a visitor, not trading or anything. I've actually never been to the York show. No, but I've always heard good things about it, so I want to actually come down. And a few of the guys that come down to the shows from Newcastle, we're going to go down. I'm not doing Salute, so we've kind of picked York to think maybe we'll go down there, get drunk, and then try and turn up hungover at a Wargame show as usual.
You are aware you're not supposed to wander outside the walls of York after.
Yeah. I've heard the law. Is that after 11 o'clock I can be legally shot with a bow and arrow?
I was Christmas shopping with my wife in York last weekend, and I was thinking of that. I was thinking, if Iain comes, that'd be a good spot up there. Practicing.
It's okay. It'll be a 28mm one.
So yeah, you were at Salute, weren't you, Iain? As a punter,
yeah,
rather than
I was at Salute. I did both the Partisans. I did a couple of the ones in Scotland, Carronade and Claymore being the main ones. We also went up to Targe at Kirriemuir, and that was it this year. So probably do both Partisans again next year. I like Partisan. I'm finding it harder and harder to keep an interest in it. No, there's certainly games there that do keep my interest. The bigger games and the stuff that you were doing with the Lardies. It was all the stuff looks great, but then there's so much more that I'm just not interested in. although it does look good, there was some I was like, oh yeah, more of the fantasy and the sci-fi stuff. I'm not a huge fan. I do play some sci-fi and fantasy games, but not a lot. Most of my interest in that field comes from movies, whether it's Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. But any other kind of games, I don't really engage. But there was, as I say, it's coming a bit more harder with Salute to really walk away and say wow. Whereas when I've been going to Partisan, I can go, yeah, that's proper wargaming. That's like big boy wargaming. It's similar situation for the traders. Obviously, I seen there was a big thing for the traders coming from Europe, and obviously that's died down a little bit. So there's not as many of them. But yeah, I don't think I bought anything. Well, I bought paints. I got a whole load of I like the AK-47 paints. I got them off Great Escape Games, and then I just buy the sets. I think it was like the First World War, I think it was World War One sets I bought. And then there was a good bit of fun at the last minute of going through security at the airport. We trying to realise I had all these liquids in my bag. And I do have a photo, and I've got my little 20cm plastic bag just rammed with AK-47 paints. There was like there was no space to be had. I didn't get any strange questions, but I thought maybe there will.
You'd be so embarrassed that it's wargaming stuff that you just go, it's a bomb. Look, it's a bomb.
Yeah.
Oh, dear
Yeah, yeah. So I did. That's 2 years in a row I did Salute, and it was kind of just like, I'm not going to do it next year. And even the guys I was with, they were kind of the same. We enjoyed ourselves. We were staying in Camden, so we were out pretty much every night we were down. But the show was a bit.
Well, it's the first time I've been for a very long time. The last time I went was EdXL, I think. And I'd been once before to the old Kensington Town Hall. So about once every 20 years is right for me. I really enjoyed it because I got to see loads of people that I don't normally see. And
and I got to meet some of the foreign customers that I have, which is quite good. There was some guys who were like, "Oh, I'm coming over. Can you bring an order down for me?" I was like, "No problem." So it was good to meet some of those kind of guys that you just never ever meet because they would have no other reason to come to any of the shows in Scotland or whatever. So that was really good, meeting those kind of guys.
I did see one of the traders. I'm not going to mention the names for the potential tax implications, but some guy had turned up from a European country, and the whole of his club had ordered a shitload of stuff, and he was literally with a trolley going out there. So,
I think that's quite common. I've got a friend that's I think they came over from America, and that's what they do. They kind of the club almost pay. I think they pay for you to go. They pick somebody every 4 years. It's somebody different every year, but it comes round to you again, and they basically send you over to Salute, but they give you a huge shopping list.
wow.
And I think it's pretty much It's not going to Colombia, but yeah.
Yeah. But you don't have to shove the fingers in a condom and stick it up your arse. Well, you don't have to.
You don't have to. You can if you want.
You can if you want. Yeah. Oh dear me. So I shall be appearing with my Mentana game at definitely at York. Yeah, there's been as far, obviously I'm making all this up and it's rumor and innuendo, but who cares? There's been a bit of, I don't know, infighting or disagreement within the club as far as I'm aware, and that's led just to not as much. I don't know how to explain it, but it's been organised differently. I mean, it's taken me over 3 months to get in contact with somebody to put a game on. You know, and I'm not expecting to get in because it's Yorkshire Gamer. I'm expecting somebody who's running the show to go, yeah or no. And I've literally had to fight to put a game on, which is just really strange as far as I can tell. And there's a lot of space there that hasn't been used over the last couple of years when some of the big traders have dropped off. First Choral, we used to have a massive stand next to the stairs. They've not been there for a couple of years, and that's just been left blank. So it's been a little bit weird, and sometimes the games get shoved in a corner. But you know what? I've thought this year, even if it's my last time in my old age, I'm going to do a few shows. I might even come up to Claymore, Iain, so I might see you up there.
You should do, yeah.
We used to do Claymore all the time. We used to love it. Used to be minibus setting off at 4 o'clock in the morning, few tinnies, do a game, have into the pub, few tinnies, drive home, get home like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't do it anymore. I'm not a young man. What's the show scene like up in Scotland, Iain? You've got Claymore, which is a fairly big size show.
Yeah, it's held on the college campus. It's a good show. Along with Carronade. Carronade's the Falkirk guys.
Is that the War Bases guys?
No.
They're from that way though, aren't they? War Bases, are they Falkirk?
Yeah, no, Dunfermline.
Dunfermline.
That's you'll get complaints with saying that.
Oh dear.
they're eternal enemies, Falkirk and Dunfermline.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, is that like a massive football rivalry?
Big football rivalry, town city rivalry kind of thing as well.
Me and Mrs. Riley not accidentally. We went to a Falkirk Dunfermline game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when we were on holiday, we'll always, we'll go to a football match, just random football match near where we're staying, and we were near Falkirk, and we went to Falkirk versus Dunfermline. I wondered why people were fighting it.
Yeah. They're basically.
Just thought it was a national sport.
They're on either side of the Kincardine Bridge, so they have it's quite a rivalry.
Right. Apologies to everyone that I've just upset.
Yeah, so that's the Falkirk guys. And that's a really good show. They've kind of continued to get better every year as a show as well. They've done really well, and that's kind of. Don't know. Is it maybe getting better than Claymore? Not too sure. Some people might say it was. It's very well organised. So is Claymore. Those are the two main ones. There's a lot of smaller ones. There used to be a couple in Glasgow as well, but we don't have any at the moment. Our council's not that great at helping people set these things up. So we used to have Wappenshaw, which was the Phoenix Club, which I go to. They used to run that. And then when the Commonwealth Games came in, they used to run it at Kelvin Hall. And basically when the Commonwealth Games came in, they did Kelvin Hall up. And basically they got thrown out of the serve. So it was like 1 year that they weren't able to put the show on. And then I don't think they've ever been able to recover and put it back on again. Then it was the same. G3 ended up putting on a show, and it was through Glasgow Council at Bellahouston, and COVID, and then everything happened, and they're always trying to sell these buildings off the council and stuff. So the group that organise them is absolutely terrible. So the guys that are trying to get answers just don't get the answers off the councils and it seems as though they put every barrier up to actually get money to do these things, and so and then as I say, there's a few smaller shows. I think the Dumfries shows might be coming back this year.
Oh, right, good.
That used to be quite a good one, the Solway one. That was the Dumfries show used to be quite good. It was one of the first ones I ever went to, and it was held in a hotel, so it had a bar.
Oh, lovely!
And you were like, the bar was just full. But I remember the year I went down with a game, and I was driving, so I was like, oh, what? It was a hotel. I could have probably stayed, but no. But yeah.
Do you prefer being there as a punter or a trader, Iain? What's the? I mean, obviously, there's a big difference between the two.
I prefer doing the games.
Yeah.
It's certainly something that is one of the biggest downsides of having a company, because when you do have it, you feel as though you're almost obliged to make sure you're promoting it, or if you do. And sometimes in the past, my wife's helped me. She's did the stall, and I put on a game in front of the stall. But sometimes it's just really it doesn't work, because somebody will ask the most randomest question, and my wife just looks at them like a dog, just like huh? the head to the side, just try to what?
Oh dear.
And then there's like this ensuing confusion between Wargamer and my wife, just going.
Does she need a customer service course, mate?
Nah, she just thinks we're all weird.
Yeah, well, there is that.
she comes to the shows, and she was just like, I would never have known these people existed.
Oh, dear. They're alive and well and doing YouTube videos on 100 years worth of rule sets.
So hopefully I can get the kids involved. Get them doing the stall.
Oh dear me. Excellent.
But yeah, so I 100% prefer it putting on the games. It's one of it's one of these things. I always say that I got in. I started doing flags myself, and then it basically became a business, and I never got into the hobby to run a business. But I'm kind of here now.
Nothing wrong with that.
And I keep adding figures because there's just things that I want. I'm just like, yeah, I'll do them. I closed, so that's the store closed today, and I've got 60 orders to send out.
Jesus.
Yeah, they're all going out tomorrow for the last order for before Christmas. No, yeah, that's kind of normal. That's not just because it's Christmas. That's kind of normal. And it's the flags. The flags do the main. The miniatures look after themselves as well, but the flags is the main driver. And no, I've always maintained that I don't take any money out of the company. I just put it back into making figures, and my whole aim is maybe a few years' time I'll sell some of the ranges to other people and put the money away for my retirement or whatever, and then maybe start making other ranges. No, it's easily done kind of thing. I probably never get rid of the flags, because then somebody needs to keep adding more designs. Whereas I've always drawn the flags myself. I've never had anybody draw a different flag for me. Interestingly, I can try to see if I can bring up one of the reports, but off the top of my head, there's a lot of ranges that are very popular. English Civil War, 30 Years War are very, very popular. Napoleonic, 100%, along with American Civil War. Those are probably the four most popular. Medieval is really popular too. But off the top of my head, one of the I do loads, but if I can think of one specific flag that's really popular, it was when I did the Prince of Wales Regiment from Sharp.
Oh yes, yeah.
So I did the flag for it, and I sell loads of them. So yeah, that's.
Does it make a difference if the period is more flag orientated? I'm thinking particularly about the Italian wars, where too many flag. I know I am. Some people lie awake and think of Raquel Welch. I think of the Italian wars. But you have a higher percentage of flags in your units. So, if I'm buying a Napoleonic, it's either one or two flags for the entire regiment. Whereas an Italian Wars party block will have 10, 12 flags.
Yeah, no, so the Swiss are very popular, because as you do, I'm pretty sure you do the same, but you'll see like a pipe block and it's maybe got 5 or 6 in the one, and it's all the different Swiss cantons, so people will jump in and buy lots of different ones for that. Same with the Italians, but yeah, 30 Years War, people buy a lot for them. I've checked on the website, and there's a lot of generic flags that kind of they look as though they sell way more because they're all grouped together. But the most popular unit flag is the 20th Main.
The 20th Main.
Yep, that's the most popular. They were at Little Round Top. They were at
right.
Gettysburg. Yeah, famous with Colonel Chamberlain and stuff. So yeah. But there you go, South Essex Regiment, Prince of Wales. That's the next.
That's it.
Prince Rupert's as well. They're very popular.
Yeah, I suppose it's the flags that are harder to paint yourself as well, because Prince Rupert's got all that weird angular stuff and the circles on it, and it's I'd class myself as a fairly reasonable painter, but I'd just go fuck off. I'm not painting that. Whereas an Italian tricolour, you've got to do 2 straight lines, haven't you?
Well,
that's the level of skill required for that flag.
I'm sometimes the same when somebody asks me to do a new range, and I look at the flags that they're asking me to draw, and I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. I think it was Paul Eagleston at Empress wanted me to do. It was like Russian flags for the Russo-Japanese War, and I looked and it was all these religious pictures of like Christ and but they were like paintings. I was like, no. Yeah, I was like, no. Yeah. There was the same. Somebody was recently asking me to do similar, and I always look into it, start researching. If somebody asked me something, and it was, I can't remember what they were actually called, but it was like Napoleonic. They were Russian militia. And when I looked into their flags, they were all very religious type bannerets kind of thing, with Orthodox religious paintings on them. I was just like, no, because it would take me days to do them.
Yeah,
it would take forever to do them, and sometimes you can get suckered in, and somebody will ask you to do something, and you're like, yeah, I'll do that, and you do it, and then you sell one in a year. You're like, I'm so glad I did that. I made that customer happy, but no one else is that interested.
Did you sell? You did some Papal States flags for me for the Resorg event.
They're popular.
Do they sell? Yeah. Oh, that's all right then.
Yeah.
I thought it was having a go at me then.
No. Those Italian ones are fairly. Yeah, no. But that's the thing, is like you people like yourself, when you do those kind of projects, people get enthused, and I can see the people jumping on and buying things, and it's like, but it's sometimes there must be things that happen that I don't know about, because I can be sitting and I can see an order come in, and it may be somebody's bought a whole load of English Civil War, and then next thing another one, and I'm like, why is everyone talking about English Civil War? Where's this coming from? And no, it's fine if they're all stretched out, but if they all come in roughly the same day, you kind of go, right, something's happened.
Yeah, somebody's put a photograph up somewhere, and it's like, I like them. I like them. I'll just show you my latest erection. Size of that castle.
You can't get that anymore, can you not?
No, you can't.
That's the old castle. What was it?
Tabletop Workshop.
Tabletop Workshop. Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be Mentana Town.
I've got a whole set of walls up in the loft that I'm going to try and paint in between Christmas.
They're very good.
I'm trying to do the walls of Carlisle.
Yeah, I got them from North Star. But all those Lithuanian women who are watching this, and they're going, "Oh, he's showing his erection." I'm going to get loads of sex bots after this. Dear me. Anyway, we've been going for 50 minutes, and we've done an introduction. So we're here now. Normally at this stage in the dramatic recording of the podcast, Sean Clark does Sean's Mexican Corner. And of course, Sean isn't here to do his Mexican Corner. So there's going to be a lot of disappointed fans out there. So, Iain, you know a bit about the Jacobite Rebellion. So
I do.
were there any Mexicans in the Jacobite Rebellion?
Well, I had a lot of tequila on Friday. Does that count?
Yeah.
No, I don't think there was any Mexicans.
Was there not?
No.
Give us a cool fact about. I'm putting you on the spot here a bit. I'm sorry about that. About the Jacobite Rebellion, we'll have Iain's Jacobite Corner.
A cool fact.
Cool fact.
The Jacobite army had more muskets than swords.
Wow.
I actually seen a comment of that. I don't know what it was. It was like a Facebook page, and it was like a Jacobite thing. But when you have these Jacobite pages on Facebook, it's normally full of Americans.
Yeah.
And it was like an AI image. Some of these AI images are absolutely melting my head. And I don't know what was going on, because it was like charging soldiers, but they had almost like a mix between like First World War gear and Jacobite gear, and there was like loads of them charging like a Highland charge, and they're all charging with these guns, and it was mind numbing. And that was one of the first comments on it was, "There's too many guns. They didn't have that many." And I was like, "Yeah, they did." So rather than reply, I just actually unfollowed the page. I couldn't be bothered anymore. It's just. Yeah, I was just like, no. It's the same with the Border Reaver ones. I keep getting. I joined a lot of them when when I'd released Border Wars, and you just have these. There was just people on it, and they're like, "Oh, I'm here with our clan Tartan." I was like, "You do know the Tartan isn't from the Borders." And they just wouldn't. It just kind of goes in like one ear and out the other, and it's just like, yeah, that's my clan Tartan. Like, no, it's not.
You get that when I'm on the holiday in Edinburgh, and you're in one of the. My wife will go into the souvenir shops. I now stand outside, but she get. Would you like to buy something with your tartan on? And I went, no, really, there isn't one. Oh yes, there is. What's your surname? Riley. Oh, we've got a tartan for that. No, you fucking. Where am I? It's Irish.
That's it's. I guess you can all say that we do, because like the whole thing of tartan is kind of a clan associated tartan is made up.
Well, there's loads of tartans now, isn't there, that are just made. Well, are made for companies and.
Oh yeah, you can get your own. A guy I worked with, got married and actually got his own tartan designed.
Wow.
And he came up, he thought far too much into this. I was like, when he was telling me, he did this for his wedding, and I was just like, I was told to get the DJ at my wedding. And he's like, he had all these reasons, he picked all these colours for like the first day he met his wife, and I was just like, what? But if you ever want to see one of the most horrendous tartans, is look at the Glasgow Commonwealth Games tartan. It's pretty much Iron Brew tartan.
Nice.
And that's they had them all coming out in these kilts, and they're like orange and blue. It's just like, what the hell?
More excellent visual stuff for an audio podcast.
Yeah, so that was horrendous.
Alex is going to hold his phone up to the camera, which you are not going to be able to see.
And it's got big buff Scotsmen and kilts.
Nice. Maybe we'll talk about people on film and the interpretations of historical nations in the next section. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a quick break, and there'll be some messages from some of my previous guests.
Hi, it's Nick Schofield here from episode 41 of this wonderful podcast. You know, the one about the Papal Zouaves, and perhaps the most important battle of the 19th century, the Battle of Mentana in 1867. Anyway, I'd like to wish you all a very merry and blessed Christmas, whatever you're doing, and also a happy new year, both on and off the table. And there's probably time for one appalling Christmas joke with a biblical theme. What did Adam say the day before Christmas? He said, "Oh, it's Christmas Eve." Cheers now. Take care. Bye.
Hi, this is David Brown from episode 49 of the fantastic, outstanding Yorkshire Gamers Reap Big Wargames podcast. So, have a happy Christmas and a good new year, and look forward to some big gaming next year, be it Napoleonics, ACW, World War II, or Ancients, or even Naval.
It is tradition to the second part of the Christmas show, of all the brews in the Binyards, is to review the Room 101 entrants and confirm their status within the Wargames Vault of Doom. And there's only been 3, so we haven't got a lot to talk about this year.
I'm sure we'll find something to talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. And that's mostly because I've done a couple of ones where there was no Room 101 because it was like the paintbrush one. So nothing went in on that one. And then we've had people who have come back on before, so they just haven't had a Wargames Room 101. But we've got 3. And I think I don't think there's going to be any argument about them going in, but there might be a bit of fun and games about the actual content of them. And the first one was David Manley, and David's been a bit poorly recently, but he's on the mend. So if you're listening, David, all the best, mate. And he put.
I just want to say that was a good episode. I really enjoyed that one, even though I've got zero interest in naval wargaming. That was a really interesting one.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Even though, I thought this is commercial suicide. A 3-hour podcast on naval wargaming. It's just no. It's like a 2-hour podcast on paintbrushes. Really, it's
another great one though. That was fantastic as well. Really enjoyed that.
I'm not pandering to an audience here, am I? I'm kind of
not really. No.
I'm kind of going. Here's my hit. And I've done a 3-minute pop song. I've sold millions, and now I'm going to do a 45-minute concept album.
That's it.
Using only the sound of people breaking wind. And yes, so I know how to look after my audience. So yes, David, bless him, said the word factions.
Yeah.
Everyone. In fact, on Facebook today, somebody had put, I can't remember what period it was. I think it was medieval or something. No, it was ancients. Put some screenshots up of their new rule set. And it looked brilliant, and it looked really well produced and everything. And then he goes, "I wonder which factions I'm going to add next."
It's just horrible, isn't it? It makes me cringe when I see it. And I was going to say I don't know where it's come from, but I do know exactly where it's come from. It's come from Games Workshop, because they have factions. I mean, the dictionary definition of faction is a splinter group generally within a political party. That's where the origin of it comes from. So it's political, not military. And it when people talk about, I'm going to take the British faction for the Second World War. It's not a faction. It's not a faction. It's a force. It's an army. It's a side. It's not a faction. It doesn't work for it.
It's normally flames of war or bolt action players.
Yeah, yes. And again, because of that step away from Games Workshop, basically, isn't it? It comes in, and it really winds me up. It winds me up in historical wargaming, definitely. So yeah, from my point of view, it definitely deserves its place in Room 101.
I mean, I said on another show, if I'd said to my granddad, who was in the desert, what faction were you fighting in, Granddad? He would have grabbed his old entrenching tool and smashed me over the back of the head with it. Yeah, he was clever enough to get out when the Germans turned up, though. So thought the Italians got the glory, then fucked off.
Clever sensible man. Sensible man.
Clever man. Yeah, it's. I mean, does it crop up at all with Border Reavers, Iain, factions?
No, so we quite.
Because it's families, isn't it? Border Reavers.
Yeah, there's different things. So I asked the question when I was bringing out Border Wars, what people preferred, and I wanted families, but there's this whole notion of clans as well, and one of the more Reaver type names is Grains. They were called Grains. They would, that's what they would call themselves. But to keep it cross border, I went with families because there seems to be a kind of thing that a lot of Reaver history seems to get really associated with Scotland, whereas it was huge in England. No, some of those families were doing way more than what the Scottish families were because they could do so. They had more power. They had more backing to go ahead and do their raids compared to, in Scotland. We've obviously not. We never had such a bigger army and stuff that we'd ever been able to stop. And obviously English families could just come over the border as they wanted and steal as much as they wanted.
So that kind of Northumbria, Cumbria, those sorts
all
of countries.
along. Yeah, it's most of it all seems to have happened around the middle. So that whole Hexham area and forward, that and then out to the west. The west is the debatable lands. That's where it was getting all crazy.
There's a lot of bastles around where I work in Otterburn. The ranges up there, quite a few all up there, and scattered across that area, isn't there? Because that was all really badly affected by the Reavers and things.
It's all the way down, so from Berwick all the way to Carlisle. But the East March was probably one of the more quieter ones. There was still a lot happening, but the March Wardens seemed to have a bit more control. But then you had some of the middle March Wardens. They were just up to the same as the rest, and they're meant to be in charge, and they're going out stealing.
I'll beat them, join them, innit?
Well, that's so. my on the book, I made sure that I put my middle name because my middle name is Kerr, which was a big border family, and they were March Wardens. But they basically, one of the things that's always associated with them is to say that no family committed more reaving than them, but they were the ones put in charge by King James. Like, oh yeah, you're in charge. And like, yeah, we're just going to go and steal everything because we've got the power.
rightly so. So, David Manley, factions.
Factions, yeah.
Yeah, which is your favourite faction, Ken, from the Italian Wars?
Yeah. No, don't forget the Italian Wars is just an offshoot of the Wars of the Roses.
Okay, so it's a faction within a faction, is it?
It's just worth 6 pages in a rule book. That's all it's worth.
But what family do you pick that makes you a Nazi?
Himmler.
What was it? Was it the Lancaster? Was it Lancaster? It was the Nazis.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, we don't let them down here.
We don't like them down here.
Lancaster.
There might be a wall at the top, but there's a wall down the middle as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, call the Pennines. Yeah,
we got carried away and made it into a mountain. Anyway. So Dave Brown came on, had a good chat with Dave, enjoyed that.
That was another good one as well.
Yeah, he said he came up with, and rightly so, war games rules that encourage unrealistic tactics.
I agree with that.
How could anyone go against that?
I completely agree with that. I think that's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, I guess it depends on if you play a game or if you're wanting to simulate warfare as a game. I think that's the difference, isn't it? Yeah. And I think, if you want to play a game, then that's fine, but there's a lot of war games out there for that. But if you want to play something like the Second World War, trying to play it like it's more Warhammer 40k is just not going to work, is it? you need to have an idea. I think going in especially as a writer, you need to have an idea going in as what the tactics of the period are, because that's what makes it different. You can't just put a skin over everything, can
Yeah,
you?
otherwise it's just a game, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
You've got so taking the 7 Years' War and the Napoleonic Wars as an example, the infantry in the 7 Years' War would stand in line to face cavalry and use their firepower to blast them away, whereas in the Napoleonic Wars they would form square. So
Yeah.
unless your rules reflect that, I mean, I'm a bit daft in this way in that I don't tend to look at how the rules work and try and get the best outcome for my units. I will fight in an historical way, and I've done it before in a 7 Years' War game where I've stood there in line, cavalry coming towards me, and go, "I'll get these, no problems." Next minute, splat all the way through. Oh, these are.
Oops.
Well, you should have formed square. What? 7 Years' War, this.
Yeah, not worked out how to do it then. Yeah, I think war games that reward tactical period tactics are my favourite. And when it's actually been thought about.
I had a World War II game one time, and I think the guy had his whole unit in a building, and he's like, "Right, I've got 15 dice." It's like, "You've only got 2 windows." And he's like, I'm rolling all my dice. I was like, "You've got 2 windows." And he's like, "Nah, I could shoot everything." I was like, what? I don't know
You
how.
probably hit all your old men like that.
Yeah, I don't know how you're doing that through 2 windows.
Yeah.
I've got. He's like, I've got 10 men, so it's like 15 dice. It's like, no, this isn't happening.
Not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the things I think that probably winds me up a little bit about the First World War stuff, because there's very few war games, and there's been a whole glut of them recently. I'm not just talking about the fantasy World War I ones, but there's been loads of them where it's just like it's just a skin over Warhammer 40k. It's a First World War skin over it. And you can see immediately, and it's like, these people who are writing these things, and these people, the roles writers, bless them, they put a lot of work into these things, but they're not down with the actual tactics of the time. So it's just like, right, it's okay, a bunch of First World War figures running about, and this, because it's my period that I'm particularly interested in, it really winds me up, and you can kind of skim through the rules. But I'll skim through the rules, and it's like they're paying no attention whatsoever to the actual period tactics.
Yeah, so I think you've touched on this before, one of your chats, Alex. And
I might have done, yeah.
I think it's down to a lot of
I have a passing interest in the First World War,
but I think it's down to a lot of the myth and the perception is just they're just charged.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, it's that 1960s school of thought of the First World War. Yeah, we talked about it before on Brews, and I've done it in videos and things. But yeah, it is this idea that it was just a massacre of men walking into machine gun fire, and this kind of gets reflected in some of the rules. And you just think, just do a little bit more digging, and you'll find, that it's completely different to that, and it's actually an interesting period that has its own flavour, which you can bring out in a war game quite easily if you thought about it. And but these people are just going to keep writing these rules, aren't they? That's the thing.
They're trying to produce a game, aren't they? And why does it need to have if you're going to produce a game, you don't need to put an historical layer over the top of it.
Yeah, just make it sci-fi. If you want to make a little skirmish game or something, make it sci-fi or fantasy or something like that. Something that can't be. I do historical wargaming because I'm interested in history, as I'm sure most of us are. So, I'm not going to be interested in something that is a fantasy game that's got a historical skin over it, because I could play that anytime, any other way. Anyway, that's So
you ever thought about doing your own World War I rules?
I am. At the moment, yes. The last few months, I've been looking at Chain of Command as a First World War set. There's already a Cocking Up the Mud and the Blood, it's called.
Yeah, I've got that.
The mash of the two of Through the Mud and the Blood and Chain of Command. But I went down to Lard Island. It was earlier this year, and Rich was trying out a few ideas for First World War. Chain of Command was slightly different, and I've kind of taken it and just thought about it a little bit more. So I've just been kind of working on that quietly. I put it on at Steel Lard the other week. Just had a bit of a test to see if things would work, and it seemed to work. But it needs a lot. It needs a lot more work. I mean, it's not even anywhere near polished. And I put out a video about it as well just recently.
I didn't hear any moaning from your table from that Steel Lard.
No, everyone seemed to enjoy it.
Seemed to enjoy it.
But they always say that to your face, don't they? God knows what they're saying behind your back, like,
Two-faced.
So that was best game ever, and then they go to the next table and goes, pile of shite, that. What's he playing at?
There's a bloke down the end and he's got a load of Italian figures and I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I kept hearing that. I don't know who they were talking about. I thought John Savage was just putting a Vietnam game on. What are they on about?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so yes, I have thought about it, and I've kind of been working on a First World War version of Rommel as well. Do you know the Sam Mustafa game for the Second World War, high level stuff? Because that's done a grid. I was thinking that was kind of inspired by the fact that I was been thinking about O Group as a First World War game, because there's loads of stuff in it that you could quite easily port over to First World War, like consolidation and stuff like that. However, there's a lot of stuff in it that you can't, and I have thought, I put a hell of a lot of thought into it, and I just can't make it work without major changes. And I thought, well, Rommel actually works quite well because it's all on a grid, which is very similar to that level of First World War fighting. If you're right up at the divisional level, they had basically almost grid lines, areas to attack into. And I've kind of been putting that together. I've not got it on the table yet because, as I say, we're moving house at the moment, so I just haven't had a chance to try it. But it's more the artillery is more of a big thing in that. And what I'm doing as well is, this is going to upset a lot of people, is there will be no tanks on the table. Tanks will be used as a support option, but as part of the ops if you played Rommel. So you actually pay for them to use them, and it's like a one shot because tanks were crap in the First World War. No matter what Wargame was like, and they weren't used in massive, apart from like the 350 that we used at Combray. You never have more than a few hundred tanks. So at that level, you're just not going to see them. They're support weapons. They're not frontline things. So yes, I've been thinking about these things recently.
Clearly,
whether they're commercially viable is a different matter. But I don't think I'd have to talk to Richard about Chain of Command Great War, and I'll probably just put it out as a fan-made thing for Rommel.
Yeah, I think it's one of those periods, isn't it, that has a limited number of players, so therefore would be a hard sell to make money from it.
But interestingly, there's a lot of First World War stuff coming in at the moment. I don't know where it's coming from. I mentioned it. There's been a lot of rules that have come out recently, mostly skirmish stuff.
Great War.
Interest there.
Great War, is it from? I can't remember who did it. There's a new set called Great War. Looks a bit like Battlefront.
Plastic Soldier
Plastic. PSC, is it?
Oh yeah, no. There's you're thinking of Great War. That's Flames of War.
Right.
Flames of War, First World War. But that's been out for a while, actually.
Right.
I think that's been around for about 10 years at this point. But there's been a load of more skirmish ones that have just come out. And a lot of people seem to be painting up those Warlord Atlantic figures. Which I have a major problem with, but that's for another podcast. It's not a history lesson. This is a Christmas chat.
I was thinking about doing World War One next year.
Yeah.
Don't know whether to do it. I've got a few things I've got planned, but World War One keeps on coming up. Is that something I want to really do? Given how the way that was brought up, my dad's interest in World War One, I've always wanted to do something with the HLI at Passchendaele.
Yeah.
That's where my dad's granddad was. He got wounded twice. Don't know how he never knew how to move a second time.
But yeah, it's an interesting campaign, because it's that middle of the learning curve of the British Army, basically.
Yeah.
And they are, they're making massive mistakes, but they're also learning lots of lessons as well at the time during Passchendaele, or Third Ypres is actually known, because Passchendaele is only the last part of the main battle. But one of the things I've introduced into the Great War Chain of Command is the abysmal terrain. and it's like you roll an extra dice, and the roll of that dice will depend on how far you move, as well as your actual movement dice as well. So it might half your movement because you might end up in shell craters and things like that. And I thought it's just a way of simulating that bit of friction that you're not entirely sure what's going to happen, if you're not on solid ground kind of thing, because of the churned up mud and crap that they had at third Passion Day or third Ypres.
Isn't there some new weird World War One stuff going on? World War One with zombies
Osprey.
and vampires.
Yeah, a war transformed.
Oh, that's it.
I don't even know what it's about.
It's the thrust of it is that it's like it's like the Wicker Man. Yeah, it's like a cultish, English horror story from the 1920s kind of thing, but Doggerland has risen back up and joined Britain to Europe. So what's happened
Doggins come back in.
Yeah, Doggins come back in. Dogging land. And what's happened there is then that the entire reason for Britain going to war against Germany, i.e. the Channel ports, is completely useless. So it's meaningless. They wouldn't even be at war with each other if that had happened. But anyway, the idea is it's another skirmish game, but you put myths and magic and stuff like that in it, which I don't particularly have a particular. I've got no interest in it, and it doesn't particularly upset me. But the rules themselves are not great, shall we say? I do have a copy of it, and it's a hard read. And there's about 5 different morale rules.
Oh, nice.
So it's not particularly streamlined, and it's not. Yeah, I'm not going to say much more about it than that because I could say a lot more about it.
Send it again.
I love it.
I thought about it, but I don't want to say negative things on the channel anymore. I've done that in the past, and I don't think it's.
We can say negative things. It's not your channel, this is it?
Well, this isn't. No, that is.
Say whatever you want, I'll hear.
Well, but I've thought about doing reviews of it. I just thought no, I don't want to because I'd just be too busy going. This is just nonsense. And somebody's put a lot of work into it, for good or for ill. At the end of the day.
Well, earlier in the year, a friend of mine passed away, as I've mentioned a few times, and I picked up a load of his stuff. And I always try and think positively with stuff like this. So he had a load of weird shit. I have inherited this thing called Actung Cthulhu.
Oh yeah.
Which is like, fuck it. What?
Weird World War II.
What's going on here?
Weird World War
So
II.
I've got loads of it. It's like Nazi zombies and oh my god, it's like a B movie from the 1980s. It's just,
but yeah, I mean, stuff like that doesn't really bother me. Like I said, the magic and myth stuff that's been forced onto the First World War. But I just think sometimes the actual history of the conflict is far more interesting than having to put a load of fucking goblins in it. You don't need to. I mean, I like Cthulhu and I like the Cthulhu mythos. I like H.P. Lovecraft's writings. And I like games based around those things. But they're kind of set in middle America 1920s. Suburban situations, aren't they, where everything's quite normal? It's not in the middle of a war that is already interesting in itself. They're taking something that's quite boring and making it interesting, whereas the Second World War or the First World War is already interesting. Why do you need to put a monster in it?
Suddenly a 12-armed, 3-headed pixie turns up, and it's like,
yeah.
Does my MG42 take this out?
Yeah, it's like the Conflict 47 or something, I think it's called, isn't it?
Yes,
where they've got like walkers and stuff like that. They've got the German half tracks with the with legs on it. It's like in the 2 years that the war has ended, they've gone to a really, really crap design when they had a pretty good design of a half track. It's like, I know what could make us lose even quicker. Let's put legs on everything. Stupid. But there's plenty of people that play that crap, so they're happy.
Yeah, people seem to do. There does seem to be like a group of folk that do like it. I'm not. It was there was a game. There was a Napoleonic one a few years back, wasn't there, with goblins and
Silver
stuff?
Bayonet.
No,
Flintlock.
way before.
Flintlock.
Oh, Flintlock. Yeah, that was the original, wasn't it? That's been around for years, hasn't it?
They had Sharp as an elf.
People like
that's right.
And I'm always like, the bit. It goes back to your point. I'm always just like, what was wrong with Napoleonic War that made it not that
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. What was missing from it?
Even
I
if
know.
you,
Orcs.
well, even if you
Oh,
go
really?
down, yeah, I'm going to play sharp because you want to recreate a TV, but it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's just go and make it something completely different. Because I'm pretty sure there was another World War II one, like dwarfs and stuff.
I wouldn't be surprised. There probably is one. There's probably several of them out there. No, I can't recall any.
I'm sure they'll be in the comments.
Yeah, Sean will tell us. But the caveat of all that is, at the end of the day, we're only pushing toy soldiers about anyway, no matter what they're depicting, really. So
yeah, just not weird,
does it
just
really
not
matter?
weird toy soldiers.
Weird toys for weirdos.
Yeah, weird shit.
Normal toys for normal weirdos.
These are real toy soldiers.
So it just leaves Rich Clark, who was on the Two Fat Lardies World Cup winning episode, and he, in true Rich style, came up.
I've got to, before you say that, I've got to mention that Rich slagged me off several times on that show. I heard, and it got a pass from you, Ken. And I was very disappointed.
I left.
He said I was coming up from the Midlands, and I'm not even from Sheffield, which is his current bugbear about the Sheffield being the Midlands.
Yeah.
So, Rich, if you are listening, you can get fucked. Carry on, Ken.
Well, I left them in so that you could respond to it. It's like, they have those, the rappers do the response music, don't they?
A diss rap.
Yeah, I'm gonna drill you with all this, and I'm gonna.
Well, there you go. There's my diss. There's my diss to Rich Clark. He can fuck off.
Yeah, there you go.
You're a right cult.
Yay, the cultists. Oh dear. Anyway, he came up with scum-sucking parasites.
It was a good one.
Which was basically, to narrow that down, it's, people who turn up at war game shows to play games and then don't interact with the public.
Yeah. If they're just there to play the game.
Yeah.
And nothing else. I think there's a difference, because a friend of mine, Dave Kenyon, I don't know if he listens to this, but if he is, hello Dave. He one of his bugbears is people who go to war game shows and then don't move the figures about. And then they say, well, it's a display then, isn't it? So I think there's a balance to be had between getting people playing the game so stuff is happening, but also having people around the table to talk to people who come up and want to know more. I think there's a bit of a balance there.
Sometimes guys find it hard to move the figures because they're talking so much.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, this is why you have a big crew, isn't it? If you have a big crew of people around you, you've got people who are moving stuff about. And then you've got somebody like you, Ken, who is happy to go around and talk all day rather than play the game.
Yeah, I mean, when we were putting Jutland on, people had come back like an hour later and go, "Oh, not a lot's moved, has it?" And I was like, "There's 250 fucking ships. It takes me half an hour to move it."
It takes a while to do. Yeah. I suppose that's the difficulty, isn't it? When you've got vast amounts of things on there. Yeah, you're still taking the first turn and stuff has moved. It's just only half of the stuff.
Exactly. So yeah, I can see either ways, but I think it's lessened. Certainly, going to shows in the 80s, you would have clubs who would turn up and play a big game and not pay any attention. And the group that have been mentioned many times on here, the Sods, will kind of change that in that they would always have 2 or 3 people who would be outward facing, who would be talking to the members of the public. They'd be handing leaflets out. They'd be answering questions while there was a body of another load of other people who would be actually playing the game. And that would be more, but it's quite person intensive, isn't it? You've got to get the people in who are going to help, and you've got to have people who are able to talk to other human beings.
Yeah. That's the big thing, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
In general, I think, when I go to parties or even salute and things, the people who are around the tables in general are pretty much personable. I think it's, like you say, Ken, I think it's something that's probably a little bit more in the past nowadays than what you would normally see. Because a lot of games at parties, I know, participation games, or I reckon most games, if you went up and said, "Could I play?"
Yeah.
For a couple of turns, most people would say, "Yeah, jump on in."
Unless it's one of mine.
I think we're a little bit more. Unless
Yeah.
it's one of yours, of course. Yeah. You'd just be,
I'm here
you'd just be bent over looking at it, wouldn't you? Like, ignoring
I'm here to play
everybody.
the game. I just stare at them.
Yeah. Don't you dare touch my fingers.
touch my fingers.
Your greasy bits off my fingers.
Bastard.
What about you, Iain? Because you said you put on games at shows anyway, don't
Yeah,
you?
so I'm normally putting on some of my own stuff, but it's like, as you say, if you've got, it depends on the size of your team. That's what it goes back to. If it's a big club, when I used to put stuff on in my club years ago, there was only ever maybe 2 or 3 of us, and that becomes harder because it just takes a couple of people to come around the table and start speaking, and then that's probably more than half your crew for the team, the day, or your faction.
Yeah.
Ruled out. But if you've got a big, because that's always, I'm always impressed when I go to Partisan and the Shrewsbury guys, and they always turn up. There's like 10, 12 of them, and they're all getting involved, and as you say, people are speaking, and everybody's kind of taking shots, and they're moving in and out of the game and alternating it round. But if you've only got a handful of guys, it becomes a lot harder.
Yeah, of course.
And as you say, you can get the situation that you can go up to the table and go, "It's not moved." He's like, "I can't." People just keep speaking to us. Or if I'm doing a display with my, like, if I've got Border Wars or something on, I'm normally taking someone through the game, and then somebody's maybe try to speak to you, and then it becomes quite hard. So you're sitting there speaking to someone, and somebody's like, "What's the rules?"
It is a skill to, keep people entertained and try and run a game, and and not everyone has a sound of outgoing personality, so I kind of get it that some people don't want to, but I think it's important, if you are putting on a demo or a display game, to have somebody there who has got that ability to engage with the public as well as other people who just play.
I know it's a big thing when we used to do the games at Claymore. It was a big thing there of them when they're marking best games.
Yeah,
is down, what's your interaction with your people
Right.
around you, and it's always a big factor, because because they want to see, they don't really come up and tell you that they're marking the game. They'll kind of watch if you're interacting with the people, and if you're just standing there, you get marked against you.
that's probably why I've never won at Claymore then, because I always go up to the bloke with the clipboard and go, "What the fuck are you doing? You're writing stuff about my game."
Your hands off my fingers.
Yeah. What are you writing? Let me good.
You the press.
Got a reputation to keep up. Bugger off.
But yeah, I think it's that striking that balance, isn't it? Like you say, between it being a diorama that doesn't move and engaging people in it as well. And I think I've not put on that many games, and the games I've put on have generally been at games days, so people are there to play the game, and that's a bit different. But even then, when somebody just comes up and starts asking you questions, they wander over from another table. It completely throws you off when you're trying to corral 4 other people.
Yeah,
playing a game, remembering rules.
I mean, I had a great time at Steel Lad, but I had 8 people at 4 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, and none of them have played the rules. And you're kind of thinking, I've got I've got 4, a couple of people who know the rules, and I'll decide, can I sit back and make the odd judgment here and there? For fuck's sake.
Well, you will pick the most obscure lardy games. I mean, who plays Pickett's Charge anymore apart from you?
Exactly. It's gone. It's in the past.
It is. You can only get a PDF now.
Can you?
You probably. I don't know.
Well, I might maybe my copy's worth a few quid then. I'll get Dave. I'll get Dave Brown to sign it when I'm at Salute, and I'll take 20 quid off it.
Half the price.
Oh dear me. So yes, that's room 101 successfully killed. So I think the hot topic. I've got a rant I'm going to do, but we've got a hot topic to cover, and I think Alex, you've done your Napoleon video, haven't you? And I think historical representations of personalities and battles on the big screen is
God.
something that we need to have discussion.
I think we do.
And Napoleon is kind of. I've not really seen anyone be positive about it.
I've not even
Have you
seen,
not seen
it
it yet? You're not missing anything.
No,
Ah,
because
wait till it's on Netflix.
with the kids, it's not as easy to go to the cinema. Try to convince my wife that we're going to see Napoleon is certainly going to be a task. And then with so much negative feedback, I seen some of the stills. I was like, yeah, I'll just wait for this to come out because it was the rifleman with the telescope that did it for me.
Not Napoleon leading a charge into the British squares at Waterloo.
No, I've not even seen that yet.
Or the trenches at Waterloo.
Yeah, I heard about that.
It's just the Prussians arriving on the wrong flank.
So,
the list goes on.
I just can't. I mean, years ago, one of the first times I ever played Waterloo, Napoleon did do that in our game because the French were on a bit of a sticky wicket and they were losing, so he threw Napoleon in. Napoleon got killed, and all the French routed off. So he didn't do that the next time we played Waterloo.
It's not new, is it? Though?
Yeah, I think
Wellington
was killed in my Waterloo game where we played in the 80s with both kids. I think the entire British army was wiped out, so man, including Wellington.
Disgraceful.
Well, you know, it's oppressive.
But the film's getting it so badly wrong. It's not new.
No. What?
The thing is,
Braveheart, Battle of Stirling Bridge, and the one thing that was missing was the bloody bridge.
Well, I don't know if you ever, Ian, if you ever listened to the episode I did. It was one of the very first ones with Dr. Chris Brown, and he's a Scottish historian, and he went off on an epic rant about Braveheart. It was just fantastic about everything. That I could have let him go for hours. He just went.
My dad was the same. So my dad knew. I've got a story for you. So my dad's been involved. He was involved in historical reenactment all the way through my childhood. With the English Civil War Society, had his own Covenanter regiment. We'd go all over England to all these various events, and he'd do ones in Scotland. And it became. They used to have there was a group called, I think they were called the Clan, but one of the guys that was involved with it was a guy called George Wallace, and he was one of the big Wallace Society guys behind driving Braveheart. And supposedly I was a child at the time, and he came to our house and he spoke to my dad, and he was wanting my dad to be involved in some sort of way. He says, we're getting a film made, and my dad supposedly told him to piss off because he didn't believe him. But then it obviously did come out. But yeah, I remember as a kid, I never seen it in the cinema. I was too young, and then it came out in video, and we got it. And I think my dad, no matter how many times he watched it, even the opening scene, and it just goes somewhere in the Highlands. That's the word that comes up at the bottom. It says somewhere in the Highlands. And he's like, he was born in the Elderslie. He wasn't a big family, but he came from a bit of money. And you have got him running about the Highlands, and it's just like,
in its Sackblow. Well, the thing is, I think with films, though, I kind of said this in my review of Napoleon, is that I don't care about historical inaccuracies because you're not watching a documentary, you're watching a film, you're watching entertainment. The thing is, the film has got to be entertaining to carry you along, and it's got to hit certain things, hasn't it? And stuff like the Napoleon film. The most recent just didn't hit any of those marks. It's just all over the place tonally, and parts of it are brilliant. It looks fantastic. The costumes are great, and the problem is though, when it's not being entertaining, then you start looking at the historical inaccuracies, and then they become even more apparent. And stuff like like the thing is with the Napoleonic Wars, the man has been written about so much that it doesn't take much just to get this stuff right. I mean, you could just read Wikipedia and you'd have a better representation of the Battle of Waterloo. There's so many books out there that somebody could just sit down and say, right, okay, this happened, this happens, these are the things that happen in Waterloo, and you could show those on screen. The people who've gone there to watch it as a historical documentary or whatever they want, they're happy because relatively right, and you can still make an entertaining film. But it's just hit so many.
Yeah, it's always that way that you go. These things that they add, the extra bits, do they tip the balance and making it better? No, what was there
No.
something that was so far wrong with the real thing? No, we go back the telescope with the on the Baker rifle. I don't even, what is it on a Baker rifle or is it just on?
Yeah.
It is actually on a Baker rifle.
Yeah.
But did that have to be added, and did that add anything to
No.
it?
No.
So
He shoots at Napoleon and misses him anyway and hits his hat. I mean, it's a nod to the original Waterloo film from 1970
with the guns,
because,
Mercer asks for position to fire his gun, doesn't it, Napoleon?
That's right. Yeah, Wellington says, no, we've got far better things to do to be shooting at the enemy generals or whatever he says. And he basically says the same line Wellington says the same line in this. But he's a rifleman with a stupid telescopic rifle on it, 2 miles away, aiming at this tiny little figure.
It would have been a perfectly good scene for that conversation to take place and the guy not to have a telescope rifle and Wellington to go, "You'll never hit him from this distance, you idiot."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, why try?
And why try? So
yeah, just to put it
into
a little bit of historical context at least instead of.
I get the the requirement in films to entertain, but there isn't. You can do that with being historically correct.
Yeah, well, I mean, like,
it's not a documentary, but then why call it Napoleon? Why not call it Dave, Emperor of France?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's as close to that as it is, really.
Yeah, and his girlfriend Janine, and then she can't get pregnant, so he ends up shacked up with Chantal, and that's not real. But we're talking about real people.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? And again, somebody like Napoleon has, there's so many biographies of him. I mean, they're coming out every minute, aren't they? Pretty much. There's thousands and thousands of books about Napoleon, so it's not difficult to get some of the basic aspects correct in that way. Even if you're not watching it from a historical point of view, just to stuff like him charging at Borodino and him charging at Waterloo and things like that. There's so much nonsense in it that it's beyond parody, really. It's madness. But
I mean, one film that got panned was Alexander, and I honestly didn't think that was as bad as people made out. But a lot of people were going on about Irish accents for the Macedonians. Well, the Macedonians were considered by the Greeks to be a kind of a lower level, a working class Greek, if you like. So I can see why that came in, and it also helped that not Colin Firth. What's the other one?
Colin Farrell.
That's the one. Yeah, he was the.
He was Alexander.
He was Alexander. Banshees of Inisherin, that was a good film. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was.
Very slow, but I really
Yeah.
enjoyed it. Comedy was just so me. Really enjoyed that. Anyway, that wasn't Alexander.
No,
but the battle scenes in that were fairly good. They had a lot of historical stuff, like him taming his horse, Celephus or whatever it was called. So I didn't think it was that bad, but Napoleon.
But that's what I mean. It's like the entertainment value of the film is bringing you along, isn't it? I mean, my favorite film I think is Apocalypse Now. Now I don't watch that film as a documentary on the Vietnam War because it's just from a military historical point of view it's absolute garbage, But it's a great film because the acting is fantastic, the story is great, the plot draws you along, the characters in it, the script, all those things carry you along, so you can ignore all the military nonsense side of it because you're enjoying the film.
If I remember rightly, they're generally using the right kit. They're using Huey's, maybe not the right model, or they're using the correct riverboat. So it's not like they're turning up in a Bell Jet Ranger or something like that.
No, they're not. But it's not. If you're a military historian, it's not how the Vietnam War was fought. You know what I mean? It's the popular perception of how the Vietnam War was fought. But it still works because it's still an entertaining film because all the other aspects of it actually work very well. So you can ignore the nonsense bits because it doesn't matter. It's part of the story and the madness. Whereas with Napoleon, the other bits don't work so well. So then you're starting to look at the historical side of it, and you think, well, again, if this is, again, Apocalypse Now is not based on history. It's within a war. It's not about the war.
Yeah, they're not pinning it to any specific battle and stuff. You can get away with a little bit more. It's like
Exactly. Whereas like Waterloo, for God's sake, I mean, just go and buy Mark Adkins' Waterloo Companion. You could get it so right. It's so easy to do. That's what I mean. The amount of words that have been written about Napoleon and about his battles. Anyway, don't go and see it. Watch my review instead.
Exactly. after you've watched the Foy battle report.
Oh yeah,
and listen to this podcast. Obviously.
Yes, of course, yeah. Well, they're listening to it, Ken. If I'm talking to them on the podcast, they are listening to it.
Oh yeah, that's a good point, isn't it? I like that. Well, good point. Good point. Well made.
Just your first rodeo, Ken.
I think everyone is his first.
Has Cludden's appeared on telly a few times, hasn't it, Ian? I've never seen it on. What's that bloody thing my wife watches? Where
Outlander.
Outlander. Don't. Okay. Preston Pans was on there as well, wasn't it?
Preston Pans was on it. Yeah, that was another rubbish part of it.
That's a fantastic battle to film because it's in fog, isn't it? Most of it.
Yeah.
So you only need like 4 extras.
And
the British Army, they're there. I can't see through the fog.
It's over in minutes. It's over in minutes as well. So you could show the whole battle on a
nice and cheap.
Yeah, just like do it in one shot. But yeah, there was that. What was it? Was it the 60s? The film was out.
Yes, it was a black and white one. Yeah,
and I always remember that because when they're going through, I've watched that loads of times, but when I was a kid, I always remember it. And they go through and they tell, because they try and draw you in with the characters, and they tell you their names. And there's a little boy, and his name is Iain McDonald.
Oh.
But even in that, there's so many myths that are associated with it, and sometimes you'll hear people still saying them, even though, as you're saying with the other stuff, there's so many books now that are written and just basically put those to bed, and people just still don't want to change their way. It could be anything in terms of, as I said, that whole idea that the Jacobite army had more muskets than swords. People are like, no, they were a medieval army. They really weren't.
I think that's the danger, isn't it, from all this, and that we can laugh a joke about the historical inaccuracies, but a lot of people who watch these films, this is the only exposure they have to that battle or that person, and they then go on through the rest of their lives to believe.
There is upside. Some people will go and get more books. I remember some friends that don't really have much interest in history, and then Outlaw King came out, and they were like, can you recommend any books on the Bruce? And it was like, you should get these books. But even some of the stuff that was in that, it was just it's almost lazy. Like most of these films, they get certain aspects of it right, but then just they offset it with some crazy thing. And you're like, what was the balance there? Why did you just go, this is where we're actually going to go with it because it makes it more exciting? Would it have been more exciting than the actual thing? I don't think it does.
But again, we're watching these things as historians, aren't we? Or people who have a particular interest in that particular period. And it's hard to switch it off, isn't it? It's like, I do it with First World War films because I generally don't watch them because, they wind me up too much from a historical point of view. But like you say,
did you not like 1917?
Well, to be honest, again, I went to see it at the cinema. The reason I went to see it is because it partly was filmed down on Salisbury Plain, so we had some bit of MOD interaction. My boss was doing the archaeology before they dug the trenches, and a friend of mine was the historical advisor on the film as well.
No excuses then.
Yeah, exactly. So I went to see his name on, on the screen kind of thing. And to be honest, I switched off my First World War head, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was an all right film. You know, it wasn't. I was more interested in the technical aspects of it. The fact that it's supposed to be one single shot for an hour and a half. It isn't really. It's about 4 or 5. But what I was looking for was where the join of the two shots was. You know, where the points where they stopped filming at one point and then started again. And I was also just looking at the set dressings and stuff like that. I was looking at it from a technical point of view, and I thought it was. You know, it's Saving Private Ryan, isn't it? You know,
when I watched that film, me and Mrs. Riley were on holiday, and we went to I can't even remember where the cinema was now, but it was one of these interactive 3D chair move cinemas.
Rumbling.
I come out looking like I've been dragged through edge backwards. Every time a bomb went off, all this bloody smoke came off from chair in front of you. And then there's a bit where he jumps in the water.
Oh yeah,
there's loads of spray of water comes out of the chair.
Really?
So
amazing.
And then the chairs rock and move around, and I thought, thank God this isn't a bloody World War One dogfight film, or else I'd be sick.
I mean, that was one of the funniest things when he goes in the water, actually, because you know, he's supposed to be in northern France, Belgium, which is incredibly flat, and there was those rapids and the big waterfall and stuff like that. It's like, you know, I've been around those places plenty of times. I've never seen a river that looks like that. One of the other things I noticed as well in that river scene is when he comes across all the bodies. If you remember, I was looking at the bodies, and if you look very closely, they're all actually exactly the same. So they've just molded one body, just reproduced it, and all the faces are exactly the same. And I was looking at stuff like that rather than actually watching the film itself. You know, I was just thinking, oh, that's interesting. You know, oh, there's that face again. There's another one. They're all piled together. But it's stuff.
You must have loved All Quiet on the Western Front.
That was terrible, man. That was even worse. Again, that goes back to the same thing. Like with 1917, I thought the story was okay. It was like an interesting story. It was, you know, these lads have got to get somewhere to do something. You know, it's
like Lord of the Rings without the ring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's Lord of the Rings, Saving Private Ryan. It's Kelly's Heroes. It's all, you know, pretty much any war film actually. But with All Quiet on the Western Front, it just there wasn't that entertaining bit. I just found it incredibly boring and plodding, and I just again switched off because it just wasn't particularly interesting as a film. And then, like I said, with Napoleon, it's like the same problem. You started then to look at the historical side of it, and it's like, well, this is also rubbish from a historical point of view. Whereas 1917, rubbish from a historical point of view, but an entertaining, you know, walk through no man's land kind of thing.
I always had a soft spot for the 80s All Quiet on the Western Front with John Boy Walton.
Yeah, the one with John Boy. I prefer the original, the 1930s.
I've seen that. My dad had. We always had the video for the All Quiet on the Western Front, so I remember watching it as a kid, and it kind of gave me a little bit of that interest.
Ernest Borgnine.
He's in the 80s one, yeah.
Is he in the 80s one? Right.
He's in the He's one of the it's John Boy Walton. I can't remember. Nobody can remember his actual name, but they all remember John Boy Walton, don't they?
Didn't he become a famous actor? Is it Ron Howard? Is it him?
No, he was Happy Days.
No, he was in Happy Days.
Was he?
He's a famous director.
He is, yeah, very famous director.
Yeah, right, there we go. Just
his daughter's a director.
I won't do any 1970s American TV quiz shows. There's that one. So just to finish,
he was friends with the Fonts.
Just to finish this little bit here, because I don't get to put things into Room 101. I need to rant about something, so just give me a couple of minutes, and I just
we can switch off here.
Yeah. Before I start, I'd just like to say that the Perry brothers have done a fantastic job. And Perry Miniatures in general.
Are you covering this very heavily?
Absolutely brilliant. But I've just got to say that
smashing icons.
Yeah, I'm sorry, lads. I'm going to knock you down a peg here.
Here it comes.
I've been building some figures from the Perry plastic box sets recently, and it's never really struck me before. I've built thousands of them in the past, but why the fucking hell is there an instructions about how to put them together. You've got a figure, a head, and 2 arms. Where the fucking hell are you going to put the head? Where else is it going to go? What could you possibly do to get that head in the wrong place? And then you've got 2 arms. Well, the thumbs tell you which arm it is, because if you put it on the wrong way, the thumbs at the bottom.
But do the arms not go with certain bodies sometimes?
Don't defend them, McDonald.
You'll not be invited back. This is room 101. There's no rationality in this.
Why?
I just don't
Why? Iain, you make figures.
A lawyer.
Do you do any multi-part figures, and do you put instructions with how to put them together?
No, I've got some with the border reavers because they were 3D, mostly on the horses. We did some with the Jacobites, just separate arms with the swords, just those ones. But the majority, no.
Did you at any point say, attach this arm with sword to that torso stuff?
No. No one seems to have had a problem with it so far.
That you know about?
Yeah.
That I know about. No one's ever complained.
At the flip side of this, I once bought an Indian mountain gun, World War I mountain gun from Empress Miniatures, from their Imperial Jazz War range or whatever it's called. That had about 1 million pieces, no instructions. I've still got 5 or 6 bits of it together, and it's been on the table 5 times. So when you need it,
from one extreme to the other,
it's not there. And when you don't, so there we go. I'm feeling better now.
I've got a feeling though that somebody somewhere with those Perry miniatures will have put their arms on the wrong way round, or will have put their head on upside down, or something like that.
Do we want those people in our hobby?
Natural selection.
Yeah. If you're not sure which way round your arms go, then where your head goes, especially. I mean,
all right.
The direction of the head, if you've watched Exorcist, it can spin. But generally, it's not difficult, is it?
Okay, I think I'll go with you, Ken, on this one. I think I will. Yeah, if it's only a 3-piece figure like that, well, 4-piece with 2 arms and a head, I think. I think it's pretty superfluous to be putting instructions in of them. But I think they're just covering their back in case somebody puts them on the wrong way around and then blames them for it.
It's like saying saying this cup of coffee is hot, isn't it? It's one of those.
The instructions are on the cup. What do you expect, really?
The instructions do go in the cup. This cup is hot.
That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Do you ever remember the famous story? What was it in America with Winnebago? And the big, I think you can Google it. It's like they had to do a big payout because somebody put the Winnebago in auto drive and went in the back to make a cup of coffee. And it crashed, but the instructions never said that couldn't happen. So they paid out and then had to change the manual.
Had to change the manual, yeah. Well, you see, there you go. It can happen. There you go. All it takes is one person.
It's called auto drive, so
yeah.
You can kind of see where they're coming from.
Absolutely, yeah.
We need to follow Darwinism, though, don't we? We need to. If you need that level of instruction, then you need removing from the gene pool. I'm sorry, but I've said it. So there's going to be a lot of people now who've accidentally put their heads on the wrong way around now.
Yeah, you'll get them in the comments.
Yeah.
It'll be the guys at the Steve at the plastic crack. He'll be putting tufts on them and stuff.
That's true. Ruin them anyway. Whatever he's doing.
Heads.
So we're going to draw a line under section 2 there and come back in a second with the questions.
Hi there, it's David Manley from episode 47 of the Yarkshire Gamers Reap Big Wargames podcast. I just want to say A very happy Christmas to all of our listeners here, from me and everyone at Longface Games. And just want to let you know that hopefully I'll be back fighting fit and ready with some new stuff for all your naval wargaming needs sometime early next year. Have a very happy Christmas.
Hi all, it's Mark Hydes from episode 45. You must have all been really good boys and girls this year because Ken's not had me back on the show yet. But if you're thinking about being naughty, remember he can always reverse that decision. Anyway, I just want to wish you all an absolutely fantastic Christmas and a prosperous and peaceful New Year. Ho, ho, ho.
I'm not going to stop the recording because it fucked up last time. So
Fair
I'll
enough,
just
carry on,
I'll
brother.
just cut this bit out.
The magic of editing.
The magic.
Leave it in.
Leave it
Sound
in.
even better. Then.
I've done it in the past. On the last one, Rich made a really bad joke, and unfortunately, it didn't record. But the bit where I said, "Oh bloody hell, that was risky," it did record, and I left that in. And of course, nobody knows. I can't even remember what the joke was now. But I did go.
I can only imagine with Rich.
I did go,
yeah, it could be anything.
Right, we'll rattle through these now. And if we get bored, I'll stop them. So, right, part 3. Ask our Nora. Get questions from members of the public, listeners. And I was saying before we started recording that normally I do this a couple of weeks beforehand and I get fuck all. And then we'll get 2 or 3 dribble through during the week. So this time I put it out 24 hours before the recording and I got thousands of questions. Thousands of them.
Jeez.
Thousands in the same way that I've got millions of subscribers.
Yeah.
I want a 30 ratio.
I got a few. So we need to crack through them.
It's close to thousands in a universal
Yeah.
scheme of things.
And some of them are actually quite good for Iain, and people didn't know he was coming on. So there we go. So we'll start off with the Twitters and Reese Humphrey on the Twitters, and we've had a similar one in the past, but we've not had Iain on the show before, so we'll run with it. If budget, space, and time were not an issue, what new period would you want to do, and in what scale? Iain, what do you think? We'll go with you. He's got his confused face on.
Yeah. Just try to think how big I would go.
Historical version of Napoleon, the film version of Napoleon.
It just have hundreds of flags on a 30-man unit. A cavalry unit with 15 flags. I would probably say if I was going to do it would. I've attempted it before and never got there, but I would like to increase the scale if I was doing it and go for full Marston Moor.
Oh, nice.
Well, 1-to-1.
Yeah,
I've seen
certainly a big chunky unit scale.
Somebody did Marston Moor at 1-to-1 at Sheffield in 6mm a long time ago. Very, very.
Oh, was it James?
Yeah,
I forget his surname. He's Glass 84 or something. I think over on
could have been
Twitter.
Could have been.
28mm big units.
Oh yes.
Marston Moor.
I'm thinking about, and I know I shouldn't be. I'm thinking about going into 28mm Napoleonics, and I really shouldn't be because I've got.
You're going to go for Leipzig?
Yeah, because I've got like 9,000 15mm Napoleonics, and I've always promised myself never to repeat, to do one scale for one period, but I've just got this itch.
But it's your interest in Napoleonics. It's some of the big, massive battles.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't be pissing about with it.
But it's not like the British ones. It's way out with the Austrians and stuff, is it not?
Well, I'll do anything.
The Russians.
I'll do anything.
All right.
I'll do anything. And what I'm not going to have, and I've seen it everywhere. God, I'm on a rant today. 12-figure cavalry units. If I see another 12-figure cavalry unit, I'm going to smash the out of it. Just because people sell cavalry in 12-figure boxes doesn't mean that every single unit on the table has to have 12 figures.
That may be the ratio they're working with.
French Guard Lancers, 1,000 men, 12 figures.
See, that's a problem I've got with the Jacobites. Is some of the cavalry units were so small.
Yeah.
When you do a ratio, you can't depict them. So you get down to like 2 figures. Like, it's not a unit.
Exactly. I've had, with my Mentana game, the cavalry units there were 50 and 60 men, so I've had to do them as 6 figures to make it even worth having them.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Landwehr cavalry unit from Prussia, 350, 400 men, 12 figures. French Guard Lancers, 1,000 men, 12 figures. Stop it now. Okay, I've said it. Just stop it. Anyway,
would you ever go 40 mil because money's not a factor?
My mate Roger Castle, he's gone 40 mil Napoleonics, and bless you, mate.
He's a good guy, Roger.
Yeah, bless you,
Buys a
mate.
lot of
But
stuff.
no, that's too big. I mean, there was the Ian Smith game, wasn't there, at Partisan?
Yeah.
With all 40 mil stuff, and it just looks amazing. But
Yeah.
maybe that's a game too far for me. Scale too
Well,
far.
the question's money's no object, and
Yeah, money's no object, it's no time.
No,
It's all there for you.
I think 28 mil Napoleonics is what I would want to do. Recreate my youth and that massive game that I first saw that got me into. Maybe not. Alex, you haven't given us an answer yet.
I haven't, have I? Well, mine would probably be what I'm planning on doing anyway in 2024, which is 15 mil Vietnam.
Oh, going to the NAM. Not 20 mil Vietnam.
No. 15 mil. I've already got 15 mil jungles. Why change it?
Yeah, but they might be just smaller jungles.
Or bigger men.
Yeah, bigger men.
I've got 15. I've got 15 mil buildings as well. So
you could invent your own weird Vietnam rule set where the men are given steroids and are all slightly bigger.
There is a weird Vietnam games.
Something
right, Red Sun or something came out 2 years ago. It was like werewolves and stuff.
Right, it doesn't surprise me. Yes, there will be something. But yeah, so I'm looking at 15 mil Vietnam. Maybe Charlie Don't Surf, I think, is the rules that I'm looking at. So,
how big are we talking?
What game wise? You mean?
Yeah.
Company level. So 3 platoons, 1-to-1 scale. So yeah, but not skirmish, but and in 15 mil, so it's doable on a 6x4, or potentially bigger in the new house. We'll see. But yeah, that's my plan. That's kind of my plan. So I'd like it to be at the point where everything is done, not at this point where I haven't actually bought anything for it yet. Or painted anything.
There's been some good Vietnam games at shows over the year.
They certainly
look good. They always look good.
I've always had a bit of an eye on it, you see, because I played Body Count when I was a kid. And I even, when I was a nipper, when I was a teenager, we used to write role-playing games all the time. One of the ones I wrote was a Vietnam role-playing game. They're incredibly basic stuff, but it's always been an interest, Again, probably from a film point of view more than anything else, really. I was kind of like a bit of a side eye on it. And the fact I've got all the jungle terrain for Malaya anyway.
Yeah, my problem with Vietnam games is they always look like a fish tank. It's just bloody.
Well, that's why you paint the aquarium plants.
Yeah, they're everywhere. John Savage had them at Steel Lard, didn't he? Fantastic looking table.
He did.
But I'm waiting for a Siamese fighting fish to come swimming through.
No, everyone always concentrates on the jungle, and they don't really seem to go into the city and stuff.
There was a great game
there's all the Siege of Hue and things like that.
With the
Siege of Saigon.
Siege of Saigon with the American embassy. We had loads of different levels that were
Tet Offensive, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was good. Very good.
Yeah, that's again that'll be something that'll be interesting to look at, like some city fighting and things. So yeah, there's quite a lot to do with it. It doesn't always have to be the jungle, but you kind of like the classic encounter is in the jungle, isn't it? And the boonies.
Right. We're definitely rattling through these not quick enough.
Okay.
Stephen,
You haven't got to get up early tomorrow, have you, Ian?
I'm up early every day. It's okay. I've got 2 children.
Stephen Gray on Twitter. What is your favourite Italian family, and why is it the Borgias? See, my favourite Italian family is the Borgias, and I've got a very big Borgia army lying around under the table. But I'm going to say the Carbonis. Benito Carboni used to play for
Benito
Bradford City.
Carboni.
Oh, I mean,
Well, I'd seen this question
yeah,
on Twitter, and I don't know much about Italian wars, but I would have to go with the Sforza family
Sforza, yeah.
because I just AC Milan.
Oh,
so.
yes, AC Milan. And Caterina Sforza was a bit of a one. Not quite. Thingy Borgia, Lucrezia. But yes, she was a proper character, Caterina Sforza. Well worth reading up on.
Mine would be the Pellegrino family, who aren't a famous family from the wars, but I spent the 2 weeks in Italy with Frida Pellegrino, and it was great.
Nice food. Nice food.
Yeah, absolutely. The family made me very welcome. It was great, and went and explored a few First World War trenches up in the north of Italy. So, what more do you want?
That's my kind of holiday. We went to Lake Como. We've been a few times. But Mussolini was shot and captured in a Lucca or something like that, one of the villages just off the side of the lake. And we were driving past, and it's like this sign that said Mussolini was shot and captured here. It's like, what the fuck? Turn around and go back.
Oh, turn around, yeah.
Oh, that was good. Anyway, that was a lot better, a lot quicker, that one. Friends of General Haig on Twitter.
Afternoon, Andy.
What is the best
Evening,
thing
Andy.
and the worst thing that Santa has ever left under the tree for you? Could be hobby or non-hobby related. And then he says, Merry Christmas to the Binyard crew. So thank you. Thank you, Andy. Well, Santa's never left a big jobby underneath me tree. So that's a positive.
That's usually the cats here.
Yeah. My mother-in-law, bless her, she will focus on something. So if you say that you like randomly, my missus said a couple of years ago, I like elephants, Mum. And then she gets like 57 elephant-related presents. And then last year, there was this really cheap, I think it was from Aldi's or something, pomegranate or something, and perfume and hand lotion and stuff. Oh, I really like that, Mum. Fuck it, they were delivering it. There was a tanker turned up with pomegranate out.
Drowning in it.
Fuck's sake, woman.
Taking a bath in it.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I think I once got from an aunt who didn't know me very well. Got me I think it was like a England World Cup team coin. So what am I supposed to do with that? Yeah. I've got zero interest in football. What am I going to do? I'll put it on display. Great, cheers.
I think the danger with that is certainly football related, and Ian will know what I'm talking about with this. Is where you've got a member of the family who knows that you like sport and like football, but in my case, I've got this Huddersfield Town annual. I'll buy that for Ken. He likes football. It's like, fuck, why do I want dog shaggers on my thing? I'm not having that. Well-meaning present, obviously. I mean, if somebody bought you a Celtic top, Ian, you'd be.
I just wouldn't have. Yeah. It's one of those things. In this city, that's something even the non-football fans clear themselves up on pretty quickly.
Would you be put on a list if you were found buying one? Would you?
Yeah. I wouldn't have been able to stay in my house as a child.
I'm not going to mention any names because it will get me into trouble. But a friend of mine, her son used to play for Rangers. I'll tell you off air, Ian. And she turned up at one of the games.
You've told me before.
She turned up at one of the games in a green dress. And didn't know She had to get escorted into the VIP area where all the yeah. So she never made that mistake again. Bless her. But there we go.
But I never always tend to stay away from asking for hobby stuff.
Yeah.
For Christmas.
Yeah, me too. Books. But
Books, yeah.
hobby stuff now. Because
I'll add stuff to Amazon list for books, but hobby stuff, my wife will go, "Do you need figures?" But I've normally got too many bloody figures as it is. And then you don't want to give them free reign because they would just
so many things that could go wrong.
Yeah, I've had games in the past. I had Terraforming Mars. I had Terraforming Mars last year. So I've had games and
board games. Yeah, board games are fine. Yeah, board games and books, but figures and things that are very specific.
Yeah,
you know,
you have to ask.
The margin of error is just too wide.
Get me some British Napoleonics. Oh, you've got me the wrong scale. Oh, you've got me Waterloo campaign, not Peninsula. Yeah.
The Ridley Scott version.
Yeah. Oh, dear me. One for Iain here. Steve H on Twitter said, "Can you ever have enough flags?"
No, more the merrier.
Easy answer.
What I'll do now is I'll just bring up something else that came during the course of this. I asked on a number of social media things for questions. And can you ever have enough flags? That's a reasonable question. Never mind that. But on Threads, I got one question. And that question was, where did you get those flags about the unit I posted on the thing? Which is a shit question for the podcast, isn't it? You've not read. You've not read the instructions. I don't want to say
the questions out there. It needs
I don't
to be
want to say
answered,
because they weren't Ian's, because they were cavalry.
All right,
they were before Iain had started.
There's another flag manufacturer.
It's Pete's flags.
Pete's flags.
Yeah, that's good flags.
Excellent. Right, Andy Rawson. Hello, Andy, on Twitter. He says, first of all, he says, "Merry Christmas to the Binyard Bunch."
Merry Christmas.
We like that. What wargaming trends do you predict for 2024? Scales, eras, 3D printing, anything really?
The one I keep getting told to do and focus on is Italian Wars.
Is it? Why is that?
I've been told from one of the authors. Editors of one of the book companies.
Oh, yes, I know that.
It's going to be. He's got a feeling that it's going to be popular.
Big.
So
it's already big and popular here, obviously.
Yeah.
And it isn't part of the Wars of the Roses, and pipe blocks are more than 12 figures.
There's no any big anniversaries coming.
Yeah, Pavia 2025. Big, not that.
I mean, in general, anything else that's going to drive maybe the hobby interest.
I think a reduction in the number of instructions in Perry Miniatures box sets is going to be a big thing in 2020.
Well, after this, I think if they're tuning in, they will rethink their marketing strategies.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, within 2 weeks of the first episode of this coming out, Warlord Games brought Epic Scale out. So, what can I say?
Anything
we are what they call influencers. That's what we are. That's what we are.
Yeah, we're something.
World War One's, as you said, World War One's coming back in a bit, isn't it?
That's what I was going to say. I would have said, I think even just tonight, skimming through Twitter and various social medias, I've noticed more First World War things. And I think the guys at the WSS magazine are currently working on putting together some forces, and I know Mark Backhouse has been playing quite a bit recently, but Sid's trench boards. So that's my prediction. Is 2024 is a year of the First World War.
Iain, is there any new releases you can tell us about that are coming out next year for yourself?
First World War flags.
Yeah, with instructions.
Actually. What way to put them, if they go upside down or not?
Oh, that'd be brilliant if you put on your flag sheet
arrows this way up,
writing this way,
glue this way. put this way, up.
Oh dear.
No, I had been looking at doing a new range. I got some samples recently, and I didn't. I've not.
You've not pulled the trigger.
No, I wasn't. I've actually just finished printing them out, so they are 3D printed versions. Normally, I change them into metal, and it is a brand new range for me. But I'm not 100% on
It's
board.
not there yet.
I was just wanting something because, as I say, I'm always looking. The ranges I always want to do is something I want to do for myself, and then I was just looking. I'd give huge brief for free examples that I wanted, and I just wanted to see it and get instantly sold on the figures, and I got them, and I went, they look good, but
not quite.
Yeah, so I'm not too sure. Yeah, there's more stuff coming out. So we've got the Kickstarter coming in February, so that'll be, and then there's a few new things.
Is that the Border Eva one, the Kickstarter with the new?
Yeah, the last one we did. So Cerisa are going to deliver that for us in February, and then try to focus on the rules, more like the updates to the rules, wanting to do things for them. The kind of supplements rather than continuously. It's trying to support the game, no more scenarios, more factions. More introduce more things to the rules in terms of what they can do, campaigns, etc., and even into other theatres. No, I've certainly had an interest in moving things over into like the New World, like Sir Francis Drake and all that, into South America and stuff. So I think it would be quite interesting. But yeah, nothing huge figure wise. I've got loads coming out with the Jacobites and stuff as well. I've actually, did I not show you? No, I've not seen you since.
Partisan, second Partisan was last time I saw you. Yeah, you had some figures on the display.
Yeah, I've not released them yet. I still need to get them painted. So yeah, some stuff for the War Washing Successions with the Grassens and stuff. So if everyone wants to get into War Washing Succession, jump on board.
That's going to be the wargaming trend for 2024.
There you go.
48 figure units.
Loads
of flags. It'll be brilliant. Paul Bryanton on Twitter. Really looking forward to listening to the latest episode of Brews in the Binyard. Sorry we've disappointed you, Paul. I was interested if you guys had any tips for building trenches for a Napoleonic Waterloo battlefield scene.
Yeah, I think we covered this one.
Covered that one.
Yeah, number one, don't read a book.
We've done Twitter. We're on Facebook now. My good friend Stephen Barker. Where do you sit in the complex simulation versus playability question for rules? I love complexity. I love tables. I love mathematical calculations. I love working out percentages and fractions and polynomials.
The question here is, does complexity, actually I saw Stephen's question on wherever, Facebook or whatever, does complexity mean it is a simulation? Can not simplicity also be a simulation, but with other means?
It could be, but once you start taking away levels of complexity, see what I did there, then it becomes, once you get to a realm where impossible things can happen, then you've gone too far. I'm
not talking about
a type of gun. Firing a weapon will go through a type of armor at a range. It's physics. It's not luck.
It is, but they are then also done on the ranges. So that's something like on a Sunday afternoon when they're testing a gun, firing at, say, a piece of armor. It will, generally always penetrate that armor. Let's say for the Second World War. fire an anti-tank gunner to tank specific anti-tank gunner will go through a specific tank because that's what they're designed to do. However, on the battlefield, things are very different to when you're training and you've got a clear shot, nothing is moving, nothing else is happening, you're not getting fired at. There's all these other things. So there's thousands more factions that could not factions, sorry. There's 1,000 more facets that come in. See, it was close. Facets, factions. There's 1,000 more facets that come in, which will force things to become slightly random, because you get it all the time. Like a Tiger tank fired at a Sherman, and it glanced off because it just didn't hit it in the right place, or a boy's anti-tank rifle fired at a Tiger, hit it on the track, jammed the track up, crew abandoned it. These things happen. They're not impossible, but they are. The percentage chance of them happening is low, but they're not impossible. So I think you can still abstract things out and still have it as a simulation, but you don't have to have that complexity into it. If that makes sense.
I think
it's got very serious.
It did. God knows how. For me, once you start to step away with your abstraction, and it no longer, as we were talking about earlier on, with rules, 7 Years' War, Napoleonic things. Once it steps out of that thing where realistic things are happening, that's when I have a problem with it. Is that it's a great game, but is it a reflection? That's a good word. A reflection of the period and the tactics and the weapons. Because once you start ignoring that and just go 6 and you're dead, it's.
Well, that's where the thing comes in. Where I think we mentioned it earlier. Is a game should reward you if you play the right tactics.
Yeah.
If you just say, for example, the O group, for example, if you just send in each of your platoons on an individual basis, you're going to get your arse handed to you. If you use them tactically, as should be used, in a battlefield of the Second World War, you will hand the arse to the enemy because you're doing the right thing, and the game is rewarding you for doing that. The game should allow you to do all the different things you want to do, but the stuff that is right is the thing that is the key to the tactics of the time. And I think that's the interesting part of it. I think that's more of the simulation of it when you're using right tactics.
I suppose it's a part your interest as an engineer. I'm interested in the nuts and bolts and the meters per second, feet per second of a gun shell and all that sort of stuff. And for me, over the years, we've gone from ridiculously complex, and then we've gone over my sweet spot, and we're now fucking down here somewhere.
Well, I wouldn't say. I think all you've done is you've kind of the games are sped up a little bit from taking away from that, the complexity of all the tables and things. And I think it's a case that to speed the game up and to keep people interested.
Are they complex? You see, you've got a table, and then you've got a number in your head, and then you're adding ones and twos, and then you're taking off ones and twos. Most of it you can do on your fingers. You don't need a lightning quick mathematical brain. You're not, give me the third differential of that. You go in, it's a 6 to hit, +1 because you're in cover, -1 because you're close range.
Yes. No, they're not
me
particularly
being
complex,
elitist?
but I think possibly.
most rules kind of cover what you're saying there, Ken. No, I would say.
But they do it in the dice rolls, don't they? Rather than the actual.
Sometimes simplicity can be quite frustrating in terms of like the simple actions can't be completed because of it's down to chance. I remember playing a game years ago in French Indian Wars, and I couldn't get a unit out of a burning building, and they all died. And I was like, "What the hell? Why were these guys just standing about waiting for the building to burn down rather than clambering out?" And they all died because the building was set on fire.
Well, the thing is, there you can narrate that, turn that into a narrative, in that they were all panicking, they couldn't find the door, smoke is filling the place,
Yeah, I
they
get that.
can't see what they're doing.
But I was telling
yeah,
them to get out. I was telling them to get out.
From a game point of view, yes, it's incredibly frustrating, but narratively, it's quite actually interesting in that, this is something that would go down in history. This is something that happened. People did die in burning buildings, so it's not something that is impossible. It's just something that you didn't like happening. You know what I mean? But then I suppose that depends on what you like out of a game. If you want to, if you want the narrative of the game, or if you're happy to play with the narrative. I mean, these days I'm more interested in what happens in the game than whether I win or whether I lose. And I think stuff like that, if something like that happened in my game, I'd be frustrated, but I also think it was funny in that it's something that I couldn't control, was outside of my control. And it's just like right at the end of it, it's like, oh, remember that time the house burned down and all the lads died in it because they were all stupid.
Yeah,
couldn't get out the door.
that is memorable. But it's one of these things. It all depends on who you're playing with and everyone.
Oh
If
yeah.
If you're playing with the people that enjoy the exact same things as you, crack on and
Yeah,
do it.
yeah.
That's it. No, if you like the complexity of
Yeah,
various
yeah.
charts, if that's what you enjoy, man, just do it. I don't think there's a right or a wrong.
Yeah. Again, it goes back to something we said before, isn't it? Really, it doesn't matter. It's a game. If you enjoy playing it, play it however you want to play it. As long as everybody else around you is playing it and enjoying it at the same pace and timing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Weirdos.
Right. I mean, to me, I think this is something I've thought about quite a lot recently. Is for me, complexity doesn't have to be about the complexity of a simulation, like looking at different angles of tanks and armor and armor plating. The complexity to me is complexity in choice. So games where you only have a certain amount of choice to do things. So, like, say, for example, O Group, to mention that again, you have a certain amount of orders. You have more units than you have orders. So you have to make a choice as to what units are going to do stuff. After you're given that order, it doesn't really matter what they're doing. They're trying to do the best they can because, they're at such a level. And it's the complexity of giving those orders out is the thing that interests me most, because that is the bit that you're thinking about in the game, not the what is the angle of that armor of that Sherman tank versus my Tiger tank.
It can be difficult. It's a difficult line to place of where you get to a point where the complexity drops away or the detail drops away, and you're then playing a game that could be set in any period of time. And I find the higher up you go with command levels is, if you're playing a campaign as a corps commander in the ACW, is it that different from being a corps commander in Napoleonic times? Pre-railways, probably not. So I'd like to get down to that level where the things on the battlefield, forming square in Napoleonics or the breech loading rifles in ACW, where that level of detail affects the fighting. And that gives me the period flavour.
Okay.
Silent.
I totally agree with you. I actually really agree with you but I think most games that I've probably experienced in bigger scale kind of cater for a lot of those kind of factors. Probably more of the smaller skirmish games that you stay away from. Don't.
Oh, it's a froze then. I was in the card after
They're probably at that level, kind of move away from
Somebody said the S word. Two words banned on this show. Right. Thank you, Stephen, for that. Aaron Thomas, Facebook. Whenever I start thinking about my next project, I get 1,000 ideas in my head and want to do them all at once. Do you have voodoo magic to help you decide your next project, or are you never that split on an idea?
Yeah. One scale, 3 periods. That's it.
Yeah.
Done.
I have loads of stuff bouncing around my head as well, Aaron, and I just don't pull the trigger on it. That's the thing. And something will spark something, usually completely random. The Italian Wars of Independence started from a conversation with Von Kettering and VK on episode 6 of this about the one unit I wanted to paint that I'd never had and didn't have a reason to, which was the St. Patrick's Battalion from the Risorgimento, the Irish Volunteers for the Pope. Bought that unit, painted it up, thought, fucking, that looks brilliant, that. Let's do a massive pot. So it's potluck for me. Something will trigger, and I'll go, yeah, I'm going to do that. A bit like the instructions in a Perry's miniatures box. Something will trigger me. Easily triggered.
Yeah, I generally don't stray really out of the things that I'm very interested in. So that will be those 3 periods. I say, I'm looking at Vietnam for 2024, but that's only because I've looked at it in the past. It's something I'd like to go back to, and it's something I never felt I did properly when I was a kid. So I'd like to give it another bash, and it's just something that's slightly different and interesting that has held my interest for years. So I'm not really a wargaming butterfly, really.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a butterfly because I'm quite a people pleaser in terms of we can be talking as friends at the club or whatever, and somebody could just mention and a set of new rules, and you're like, next thing you know, you've just got a box of figures for it, and then you're like, oh. But that was recently the new Contact Front rules came out, Modern Warfare once, and I've jumped in with that and bought a whole load of the White Dragon British and the Afghans. Yeah, so I need to try and get them painted, but I'm still aiming for my Battle of Falkirk. That's still my main priority.
But what makes you well, just say in that area, what keeps you on the Falkirk thing? Is it just the interest in it anyway?
It's obviously one of the main with the Jacobite range, try to focus on getting every unit done for the Battle of Falkirk. I've kind of given myself 2026 will be one of the anniversaries of the battle. I could try and put on.
Well, you're working towards something that's a bit easier then, isn't it?
Yeah, that will probably be the aim.
Yeah.
Cool. How many projects do you tend to have on the go at once? Iain, thousands.
Yeah, but it's lots of smaller games. I've got lots of range. I've got lots of figures for different games. So normally I'm just adding stuff to them to try and bulk them out so I can play, improve on my games, like my French Indian War stuff. I love French Indian War, so I've got loads to that. But then somebody will bring out something new, and I'm like, right, I need them, get them added, or I need a new unit or whatever.
I used to flit about a bit and have 2 or 3 on the go at once and do one unit from one and then one unit from another. But I've kind of backed myself into a corner with agreeing to do display games. So the Italian Risorgimento, I've got to finish it by the 2nd or 3rd of February, whenever it is for York. And then I've committed to do Narvik at Salute in 25. So I've got a shitload of boats and a shitload of terrain to do for that. So that's me sorted. And I'm just going to try to... I've got more Italian Wars and more Crusades I want to do, but I need to stick to stuff that is going to be done at a show at a certain date and time.
I kind of painting. I don't really do projects like that. I don't do a big thing. I kind of paint bits and pieces from other things, but they're all kind of tied in together. So the stuff that I recently finished was some Indian pattern armored cars for Malaya, 1942, a paddy field for Vietnam, because I'm just trying to get some more terrain together. I'm working on a Normandy house, the Second World War. So it's like, it's all kind of like, mid 20th century stuff, but all completely different theatres within that. And I just kind of do, little bits and pieces as I feel interested in them. So I don't really. It's a little bit like butterflying because I don't really do it as a project, but I'm just adding to existing things. I'm not saying, right, I'm going to do, everything's going to be Indians for Singapore, and that's all I'm doing, because I've done some, and I'll do some others later on. I'll get some other bits and pieces in and things. So yeah, I kind of, when it comes to painting, I flit about a bit just to keep things interesting. But then on occasion, I'll sit down and just do a chunk of stuff and just go, right, okay, there's a French platoon for the First World War that I've done.
So Aaron's continued with a statement, and this is an interesting one. Avocado can't be posh mushy peas because you don't put avocado on pies or peas on toast. Well, I don't know if you saw recently, but somebody has released a recipe. Yes, a recipe for peas on toast.
Well, I'm surprised that people haven't had peas on toast in the past. I mean, it's only beans on toast, so just green.
Yeah.
But I hate peas anyway, so I won't have them on toast or anything.
It's not
or mushy or any other way. Mushy is even worse. So how to make something terrible make it even worse?
But it's
No, thank you.
somebody sent me the recipe, and it's all like mozzarella cheese and slivers of chili and all. It's like it's fucking peas on toast. Toast, peas on top of the toast. Jesus.
Sounds disgusting.
It does.
I
I
like
would
peas.
love peas on toast. But peas on toast does exist.
What about peas in our time?
Oh, very good. Very good. I like that.
The pipes of peas.
Oh my god! Right, before we turn
It's
in,
Christmas.
I thought I'd done bad puns at the start with my Cliff Richard thing, but okay now. Right, and then Aaron says
a head full of it.
He's got a request from Aaron. My mate Chad has had a really rough year, and he loves your show. So big shout out to Chad. Are you able to give him a shout out? Just done it with some Yorkshire pills of wisdom. Fucking, they don't want them. I'll let him know his buddy
3 hours of them.
Yeah, let him know. Let him know his buddy Aaron is keen to do more games in the new year. So yeah, Chad, all the best, mate. Wargaming is a fantastic hobby to lighten your mood, to get really good mates, and to have a great laugh and fun with, and have friends for life. So you're in the right hobby, mate, and you're listening to the right podcast. Yeah. Boom, you've done it.
There you go. Mic drop. Perfect. Can't ask for more than that, can you?
You can't. Jeffrey Smith, similar to one we've had before. If given an unlimited budget and assuming the same number of bases for the army or battle that you were replaying, would you ever consider replacing 28mm figures for a smaller scale? Same size forces, Mass Effect. No, I'd have bigger 28mm forces.
Yeah.
Well, as a predominantly 15mm person, I don't need to replace anything, do I? I've already got me small scale, so I'm all right.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Thanks for the question, Jeffrey, but meaningless in my world.
In your world, yeah. And for me, I have done with my 10mm Malburian. I've done 10mm Malburian, but on the same size basis as a 15mm Malburian, just with more figures.
That's how it should be done. That's how, and sometimes I never get when you see people doing smaller scales, but doing them at the same ratio that people do at 28mm.
Yeah, I love a. You know, I'm not a massive 6mm fan, but if somebody did Italian Wars in 6mm with huge 400-500 figures in a pipe block, that'd get the juices going. Juices more than a Lithuanian lady on Twitter. That'd get me juices going. That would. Love it. Right, we are rattling through them, which is good. Simon Stokes on Facebook. Which of you is the most jammy when it comes to in-game dice rolls?
Not me. I'm
me
rubbish.
neither. Yeah, me neither.
I'm
just when I need it, it never turns up.
Does it?
But that's part of the fun, though, isn't it?
Do the dice gods never?
Being crap.
Are you not sacrificing the right animals to the dice gods?
Nah, I can't even win my own game.
You've written the rules and you can't win.
You know the rules?
Yeah, my dice rolls are just terrible.
Oh. I have to say, when Leeds Wargames Club has a curse of the chairman, and that chairman always rolls really bad dice. And I was chairman for a couple of 3 years, a long time ago, and my dice rolls were shite while I was chairman. And I seem to have come out of the other side now, and I would say that I'm fair to middling. I can knock it out of the park every now and again. Especially with
when you need
especially with the weighted dice, obviously.
Yeah, I'll just get my special dice out for
Yeah,
this.
if I need to win big, I've got my special dice that always roll.
Yeah.
I want them. Excellent. So so you two are coming round for a game then, so I can win.
Yeah.
You'll win.
Excellent.
You will table us, as the kids say.
Tabling. I tabled them. What's the fun in that? You've set your figures up, and then somebody just kills them all, and you've not done anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the narrative?
Yeah, I go, you die. Is the new movement.
I go, you die.
Right. We're rattling through. Jonathan Jones on Facebook, one for Iain. What's the appeal of oversized flags, and is it a compensation thing?
I think it's just a look on the table. I don't go as big as the League of Elksburg guys do, like Barry Hilton. He goes really big, but yeah, mine's are a little bit more heroic. It just looks better.
Yeah,
I think. I don't know. It's the same. It's the same with figures. Like if you look at figures and they've got true, like if they were true to scale, they just don't always look right. They need to be a little bit more chunkier in certain parts, and I think it's just the same with the flags. I've did flags at true scale, and you put them on, it just doesn't look right.
And some of the French battalion Fanians are absolutely tiny, aren't they? They were on a little rod that's stuck in the end of a rifle. So in 28mm, they're going to be smaller than a postage stamp. They're going to be absolutely tiny.
And it's even some of the detail, you can lose so much detail the smaller you go. So like if you were to go true scale in some of the French Napoleonic flags, there would be like no point in writing much on them.
Yeah.
Just say that's who it's. How can you say it's not their flag?
I think something I found doing the Italian stuff recently, the Risorgimento, is that people haven't got a clue about the period. So when they're coming and they're playing a game, if you've got a big French flag on the unit, you can go, those French troops over there, or those Italian troops, or the Papal States with the yellow and white flags. People can see from a distance, and because the flags are slightly bigger, from a game playing perspective, and I use the different types of Italian flags of the period for brigades. So the commander will have a flag, and all the 4 units in his brigade will have that same flag, and then you have a slightly different one with the Bourbon coat of arms on, and that will be the next brigade, and so on. And I find that slight twisting of history, not putting trenches in Waterloo, but that slight twisting of history adds to gameplay because people can use them as markers on the table.
Yeah.
Well, it's like,
whatever helps you identify the unit, isn't it? Or a new person identify.
It's the same with the. You get guys that will comment that the American War of Independence, a lot of the British regiments supposedly never took the colours into the field. So what do we do? Just not have any flags? Just have loads of figures?
Yeah.
It just look rubbish, won't it?
Yeah. I think everyone has their own limit of authenticity, don't they? And sometimes I bend and twist things to improve the game or make the game easier for me. Because a lot of
it's like the amount of eagles, isn't it, on it? French eagles in a Napoleonic army. There's about 50 times more in a wargaming army than there ever actually was. But it's because they look good, so you do it. You just do it,
I found it particularly with the just not quite flags, but with detail on the World War II ships, the big ones that I've done. Oh, you've got the wrong radar on that for November 1941, and it's like, fuck off! It's taken me a week to build that. I'm not building 15 of them. Oh, I need Prince Eugen from December 1941. There we go. Oh, I need Prince Eugen from I'm just gonna go down to my warehouse in in Leeds and pick up.
Yeah, pull the right one ship out just for this one game.
You'd have to have like an Amazon automatic robot going around and tell, can I have Prince Eugen from December the 14th, 1942, please?
Did you get any of that with the Italian stuff with them saying that that's the wrong uniforms? Because obviously you're just using like American Civil War stuff.
Not that many, because most people don't know anything about it. And that's
All
a
right.
top tip, kids. If you're going to keep away the trolls on internet, do something that people know fuck all about, and then you can go,
That's it. Right there.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah, prove
Prove
me
me
wrong.
Because Garibaldi
I get
Garibaldi
it.
Now you sound like
was
you sound like Ridley Scott when he was saying that historians
Yeah.
weren't there, so how do they know?
well, Garibaldi was never a nation. So if you've got Neapolitan or Piedmontese or whatever, they've got his biscuit. They've got records of things, whereas Garibaldi just fucking stole it or borrowed it, or he wasn't a state that raised taxes that generated paperwork that they can research. He turned up with a load of guys. Have you got a red shirt? Yeah, right. Put it on. You got a musket? No, go and steal one. Works for me. Anyway, that's flags. Mark Hides, who was on episode 46, I think. If you had one lucky dice and it was round, would you use it?
That's a question more for you, that one, Ken.
Well, I can say safely, having been given a round dice, that I couldn't use it because it never lands on a fucking number.
They never do they? I've got one kicking about somewhere. They're just absolutely useless.
It rolls around and then it comes up and it's never, ever, ever on a number. It's just between two numbers. So I'd love to, Mark, but ones that land on numbers don't exist.
No.
Would you ever consider buying figures from the other place? And if you did, was it a treasonable offence? If somebody in Yarkshire was going to sell you some figures, would you buy them?
Yeah.
You don't. What we could do a board of reavers. We could raid. We could raid them. We could go over the border.
Like, and just take them.
Take them.
Well, the thing is, you're taking them off them, aren't you? So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're removing something of pleasure from them. So they're going to be upset about it. So good. Works both ways. You're putting pleasure into your life and taking pleasure out of their lives. So works for me.
Yeah, we could
take anything.
We
you
could
want
leave
from
them some
Lancastrians.
Yorkshire tea bags.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like going into a country and leaving some glass beads and taking all the mineral rights, that sort of thing.
Mm.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, works for nobody got upset about that, did they?
Well, no.
Right. One for me, probably. A serious question. What book or books can you recommend as an introduction to the Italian Wars? Just started a period with the Spanish, and that's from Simon Neat. You two guys are looking...
Absolutely no idea.
Get the... It's old now, but Sir Charles Oman did a series of books on... You want the last one in the medieval series that covers the kind of Swiss Burgundian Wars and the start of the Italian Wars, and then the first Renaissance one. They're old, but they give you a really nice overview of the battle, of the battles in the period. And then once you've got your head round that, because it is really, really complicated, and everyone stabs each other in the back, and it's Machiavelli was right, and everyone ends up fighting against everyone, which is one of the great things, because you have an army. It can always fight. You can always find an opponent. So that would be my recommendation. Ian Fuller from Facebook. Hello, Ian. Any idea where that 6mm tank turret I dropped has gone? I swear it disappeared before it hit the ground. Have you ever inexplicably lost kit to the Wargaming, Vortex, or Twilight Zone?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, all the time. There's probably about 3 or 4 armies down there, to be honest, all over the carpet. I just can't find them.
The worst one is if you're, especially with the flags, is cutting down the flagpoles and you lose the bit,
Yeah, the unwanted.
and then you can't find it, and then your feet will find it later on.
Oh.
Yeah. But
yeah, I just lost some Indian crewmen for my armored cars. I was cutting them off the 3D printed. I was cutting them off the stands, and went flying off, never to be seen again. What can I do with that?
Have you ever seen or watched Curse of Skidwalker Ranch? No.
No.
Oh, it's like a UFO thing on history. But they think they think there's like these portals where things disappear, like aliens and
they're all socks go.
so, yeah. So there might be a portal in every wargamer's room somewhere.
No, I think it's just a carpet. It's not a portal.
I had one once when I was making HMS Hood, where one of the turrets pinged off, landed on my dog, who then proceeded to run outside into the garden for a wee, and it took me about 2 hours to find the turret. And it's not something you can leave off. You know, if it was little anti-aircraft.
We're doing a fine fingertipped search across the garden.
I got the lads from work out with the sticks and a couple of search dogs.
Well, this is far more important.
Yeah, God, stop that body you're looking for. Come and find this turret.
Drop whatever you're doing.
So yes, Ian, it does appear that it happens to absolutely everyone.
Oh God, yeah.
Dear. Right. So, don't know whether this one will go down well. Steve Evans, Facebook. If you had to play a fantasy war game, what would it be? And would you go big battle or skirmish?
The only one I play is Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I was going to say I have got a Rohim army for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I'd probably go Lord of the Rings because it's the closest to historical. But I won't mind having a bash at old school Warhammer Fantasy Battle because when we were kids we used to play it and we'd never have enough figures to that it looked like in the book. Second edition, all those beautiful colour photos of massive battles. I'd like to do that, with really big. I think probably like two turns into the game, I'd go, this is absolute shite. Why am I playing this? But at least I'd like to get it set up and get ready, and make it look like what I always wanted in my head to make it look like.
Bringing that back, aren't they? With the old hammer stuff.
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah. Old hammer's always been a bit of an underlying thing, hasn't it? And doing
that was like when I'd went when we did ChillCon a few years ago. A few of the guys that I went with, they were quite into the fantasy stuff, and we went to Games Workshop, and I never had much interest in it. But it was the older stuff that when I seen all like the Bretonians, and it was more like Renaissance battles, and I was like, "Oh, this looks actually quite interesting."
Yeah, one of the guests and one of the guys who asked a question before, Mark Hydes, he's kind of going back into that old school. Not non-specific fantasy figures in 28s, and they do look good. Mass battles, they do look great. A friend of mine, Pete Clayton, him and his brother used to do massive Lord of the Rings games, and I remember seeing them, and they had huge eagles and everything all over the place. Which it looked brilliant.
It's very impressive, isn't it? But I think like with Warhammer Fantasy Battle in particular, the clunkiness of the rules would just completely slow everything down. But just to revisit it, as a fantasy of a fantasy.
Very true. Onto Instagram now, and we're on the final page. Rush, have you ever played thank God, played a Wargames campaign that actually came to a conclusion? And if so, what was it, and what period? Oh, if so, what was it? And also, is there a period you would like to run an ongoing campaign for?
Yes. Me and my pal Dex down at the club, we recently played 29 Let's Go Chain of Command campaign to conclusion, and we played the first part of the Curse campaign to conclusion. We're currently working on the second part. I played them solo. I played Malaya solo. I think the thing with campaigns, I don't know if you guys would agree. I think those pint-sized campaigns that the laddies do have got it right, where you're about 6 games in. Any more than that, you start to flag a little bit, and it's. I think you really have to be very focused, and it has to be over relatively quick. because they can go on and they can drag on, and I think that's probably what he's hinting at there.
Yeah, Iain, is the Border Reavers like a campaign thing?
I've got a campaign book coming
Yeah.
for it. Yeah. So there's the big thing about you controlling your family.
Or your faction.
Yeah. Most of the games that I've ever really completed are kind of small scale games like Paul and stuff, more narrative type campaigns that try to tell a story like Indiana Jones or whatever kind of thing. Not really completing the bigger ones.
I think that's what you need, isn't it? A campaign needs to be a lot more narrative, doesn't it? Because that's what keeps you interested. Like when you're following a particular character within the army or something, they start to develop their own characters in the games, and I think that really helps.
It was Aaron Johnson at the Preston Pans Museum. He did a really interesting campaign, but he did it online, and he allowed the people to determine the next move.
Okay.
So, but he did the Jacobites coming into England, and basically that was the whole idea was where do we go, and it would lay out options, and then see how it played out, and that was how they tried to do the game.
Sounds like a good idea. Nice way of getting people engaged in it as well.
Yeah. I think those structured campaigns, which is like linked scenario campaigns, are so much easier to complete and so much easier to do than the old school like open-ended campaigns that we used to do them, and you'd be sending out search planes and stuff like that, and then somebody wouldn't turn up for 2 weeks, and you'd forget what the you were doing. And we did a Chase the Yamato game with that method, and we got to a conclusion, and that's the only time I've ever had one of those open-ended ones come to a conclusion. But the stuff that like you're talking about, there's a company called Decision Games in the States. They do really detailed and complicated with charts, linked rules, linked campaign games for naval, and we used to do one every Easter, and they were brilliant. Really, really good. It took a lot of the work out of it because it's all, and it was like the old Ian Livingstone fantasy games. So you'd like, if this happens, go to 1. If this happens, if you decide to send,
choose your own adventure.
Yeah. So I love those, and they work really, really well.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to have an end point on them, don't you? Open-ended campaigns they can eventually, like you say, if somebody doesn't turn up for a couple of weeks, it'll completely kibosh the entire thing. And if other people then start losing enthusiasm, it's just you've got to maintain it.
Sure. Right. So we'll rattle through these last ones, 1 or 2 word answers to get to the end, and we're nearly done. I don't want to leave people who've asked a question out, if you know what I mean.
That's fair enough.
Chagorian Drift on Insta says, which historical period deserves more exposure? Italian
First World War.
First World War.
War of Succession.
War of Excellent. Mark Smythe, 71 on Insta. What has kept you in the hobby? I've got fuck all.
I like wargaming.
Yeah.
Wargaming and the friends I've made.
Yeah. It's cheaper than drink and prostitutes.
Absolutely.
But not much.
Well, it depends on who you're buying from.
Yeah. I suppose I suppose Lithuanian prostitutes are cheaper, are they? I don't know. Not really.
I was meant talking about who you're buying your figures from.
Oh, sorry, Ian. I got you miss. Anyway, if anyone does know the exchange rate with the Lithuanian whatever it is, let me know. God, I hope the wife doesn't listen to this one. Right. So yes, friendship and I mean, I've talked about mental health with Henry in the past, and it really helps me come away from the job that I do and just forget about the stuff that I've done and seen. So that's probably one of my main reasons.
Yeah, like you say, friendship, just enjoying the games and the camaraderie of it all.
Speaking to a couple of idiots for 3 hours on the fucking internet.
I mean, who'd do that? Who'd spend their Monday night doing that?
Oh, God. Selby39 on Instagram. We've answered this before, me and you, Alex. This is one for Iain to sort out. I'm getting tired. Who would play you in the biopic of your life? Sean Bean.
Who would play me? I'm not too sure.
Alex, we've done this before. Who did you go for? Can't remember.
I can't remember who it was at all. I'll go with Whacking Phoenix.
Wacky Phoenix, yeah. Good historical likeness.
Absolutely, yeah. May as well. He did Napoleon pretty well.
I was always told the boy.
Being sarcastic,
It was a boy. It was in Peaky Blinders. The Tom, not the brother Arthur Shelby one.
I've not watched Peaky Blinders.
Oh, no, I watched it.
Nah, just because he was tall and ginger.
Right. That's all it was.
That's all. That's the requirements.
That's all you need.
That's all you need. So, was he Scottish though?
No.
No.
He's a Londoner. He's a Brummie in the TV series. So.
Excellent. Oh, this one could. I'm not sure whether we could answer this one. 413 Holborn on the Insta. What historical period, if any, do you really want to game in, but is morally unacceptable to others?
Well, it goes back to what I was saying about Contact Front. It's one of these ones. I actually played Moderns not that long ago. Oh, I say not that long ago. A good number of years ago now. I'm trying to remember the name of the rules. The Radio Dish Dash game. And it was actually quite a strange experience because I had a friend that was in Afghanistan at the time. And then I was playing the game and it was quite I didn't enjoy the experience. Don't know why I'm going back to it, but yeah, I'm trying to see if it's going to be a different experience this time, and that's probably one. It was probably still quite a sore point at the time. Too close. Seen that with people like bringing out figures for Ukraine and stuff at the moment. You're like,
don't even.
I mean, certainly when I first started in the 70s, late 70s, then Vietnam was a bit of a no.
Well, I've still got. I've seen a couple of people do it with the Troubles in Ireland.
Yeah,
still seems to be quite one that people are kind of stay away from. But I've got a huge to both sides for the 1920s stuff, the Anglo-Irish War.
Yeah,
and even when I mention that, people go, "Oh, you couldn't put that on at a show," or no, it's still quite a sore point. And I was like, it was 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but rivers run deep.
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting. It's actually quite a deep and interesting question. I'm quite loose with my morals, as we've already found out. But morally unacceptable. I don't know.
Yeah, I think if something is morally unacceptable, whatever that is classed as, then you're not going to do it anyway, are you? I mean,
it's
like Iain says, I'd feel a bit, because I know a lot of Afghan veterans through my work, and I'd feel a bit weird about doing ultra modern stuff, in the last 10, 15, 20 years, because I know people have been affected by it, and you kind of, I'd find it questionable, so I just wouldn't play them, so I wouldn't want to play them either, you know what I mean? And I'm not. I know you're going back into your Afghan stuff here, but I'm not saying that's morally questionable. I'm just saying, from my point of view, if I think it's morally questionable, I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to have a desire to do it either.
Yeah, it was more questionable. I was driven by the figures more so.
No, I'm not making a point about you and you doing your Afghan stuff.
I'm fully accepting that I may well play that game again and have the exact same experience, and and just move. I'll just move on from it again.
I've got quite a big Arab-Israeli setup, sort of mid 80s. 83, 84, the Syrian war. And would I feel comfortable taking that to a show at the moment? Probably not. But I would quite happily game it in my room, because I'm gaming the historical actions. I'm not gaming what's happening now. And something that comes up more now than certainly did when I was younger is playing Germans, and certainly the SS in World War II. And that's never been an issue for me, because I've always done historical scenarios. So if I'm playing the Battle for Caen when the 1st and 12th SS come in, if I'm playing that sector of the battlefront, the SS were there, so I'm playing them because it's historically correct, rather than choosing to play them.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's a difference,
I
isn't
can
it?
see that. I can see that difference rather than me going to a tournament and going, right, I'm going to play with these SS figures and I'm going to put stickers all over them and I'm going to have them
Yeah.
because they're really good at fighting.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I wouldn't game the SS just out of my own.
Mm.
But I've no problem playing against people or even buying figures. I just wouldn't paint them. I just have no real interest in wanting to paint them. I know I've certainly questioned when, I think it was a good number of years ago now, but Warlord brought out like the Charlemagne division, the French,
Yeah.
and you go, well, they were obviously driven by their own political beliefs. So if you were bringing them into the factor, I was kind of like, well, that's a bit of an odd choice. Why did you pick them?
Yeah. Well, I guess the thing with the Charlemagne, they were the ones that were defending the Reichstag,
Yeah.
weren't they? At the end, so you can again,
Fought
you
to
can
man,
okay,
died, didn't they?
yeah, you could argue that they are scenario specific
Yeah.
if you're doing 1945 stuff, but yeah, I don't have any SS figures in my well, he's an extensive Second World War German collection. You know, I just if I'm going to use SS in a specific scenario, then I just use the other Wehrmachts I've got. I haven't, created an SS platoon or anything like that. Yeah, no, it's because it's morally reprehensible, but just because I've not been bothered to, like you say, and it's just I'm not bothered about using them. I can just swap out There's not a great deal of difference between the SS and the other Wehrmachts for most part. Apart from,
And they tended to be, because of the nature of the units, they tended to be the Schwerpunkt, the heading formations. You know, if you're going to fight the Ardennes, unless you do the bottom prong with the second Panzer Division, you are mostly going to have SS troops. You know, and
Well, we did one of our guys at Glasgow District. He's right into the Balkan history, Balkan Dave on Twitter. And we did a game at one of the shows, and it was the raid on Tito.
Yeah.
In Yugoslavia. But it was the Fallschirmjägers that dropped in, and then it got me involved. So I was like, yep. So I was painting up all these Fallschirmjägers, and then I started looking into the history, and it turned out I think they were like the 6th Fallschirmjägers, but they were a SS penal battalion, and I was like, what did these guys do that the SS thought was wrong?
Didn't even want them. It's like, lads,
Jesus.
there's a line, lads. There's a line.
Yeah.
Come on.
That's an entirely different level of naughtiness, isn't it?
It is.
These guys, they're sitting outside the headmaster's office, having done something wrong in class, and then there's being sent to an SS penal battalion.
You know, when the SS is sucking their teeth at somebody, then you know they must be really vile.
Yeah. So I think it's very much a personal choice, and different people will have different perspectives on things. And I mean, there was one game that I saw. I think I've mentioned this before. It was in the early 80s. Somebody had done a Nazi death camp game. Would you believe? And that was the only thing that I ever looked at and went, "That's wrong."
Yeah,
and that was
somebody did it somebody did it a few years ago, and I think it was concentration camp people figures.
Yeah,
you're like no.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly, there is a board game. I can't remember the name of it, but it created a bit of a stir in board game, like in Essen, I think it was the big board game meetup there a few years ago, and it was what it was. It was basically like a bit like Ticket to Ride, but it was like you were building trains and you were trying to get as many passengers onto these trains, and it turns out that what you were playing trains going to a concentration camp.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the pull of the players, it was about the morals of it and about the players, playing to play the game to win it. But then when they find out what it is, it's like, how do you process that? It was more about how the game makes you feel about these things, and thinking about history from that point of view. So it's not as though it's like Jolly Japes where you're trying to get people onto a train. It's like until you knew what the actual reason of the getting them on the train was. you were
not too sure
all
what
up
the
for
outcome
playing
of
your
that's going to
campaign.
be. What
Yeah.
majority of people are going to say that they felt really crap about it, unless you get one complete nutter that went, yeah,
yeah,
It's
brilliant.
a really shit surprise, isn't it? It's not like
yeah,
the end of The Usual Suspects where you don't know who Kaiser Sose is, or the Crying Game when it turns out to be a bloke. It's like I've been moving people. Oh no,
But that's the point. I mean,
you've
you're
won,
examining.
but
but it's
Yeah,
a
but
one hit
everybody's
wonder
won.
though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, you couldn't do it again.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's coming. But that's the point. I mean, it's it's the morality of it is making you think. Are you playing a game or are you recreating history here, or what are you doing? There's lots. It's a philosophical thing which is very interesting, I think. But it doesn't translate to somebody doing a concentration camp war game.
No,
I don't think because there's something particularly wrong with that.
No. So and some people just they have no empathy at all and would not see a problem with that. They would see a mechanical process and a challenge to meet, and not see the end game. And I don't think those people are right by any stretch of the imagination. But
No.
through my work, I have met those type of people who think in an entirely different way to what we do. I mean, we've discussed before, Alex, haven't we, about historians and how the historiography, how the history of the history changes, and I find that really difficult to come to terms, not to come to terms with, but to work out. Because as a scientist and engineer, I went to school at 14 and learned Newton's laws of motion, and I go into a courtroom today, and Newton's laws of motion are exactly the same. They don't change. So having history change because it's interpreted different is quite difficult for me to understand. And this whole.
Well, this is why we have arts degrees and science degrees.
Yeah, exactly. One's engineering degree, not science. Proper degree, but BEng, Bachelor Engine. Sounds like a cut edges, doesn't it? But yeah, so I found that quite difficult. Changes like, you can't call it the Dark Ages anymore. It's like, well, it was Dark Ages when I was at school and when I did my O-level history. I mean, Newton's first law is
well, you
still
can
the
call
same.
it Dark Ages because it's a colloquialism, but it doesn't mean what it meant.
Can I just say? Can I just say something on the Dark Ages? And this is this is me winning point. This is on Twitter. Michael Wood, the best historian in the world, said that he was going to such and such location to do a talk on the Dark Ages. Michael Wood, I am Team Wood. Dark Ages all the way.
Michael Wood is history himself. He's that old. He's been around that long.
He's brilliant. I love him. He's just so good. He could do a documentary on the internal trims of Austrian Allegros 1974 to 1982, and I would watch it. And it would be interesting as well, and you'd watch it because he was doing it.
But we go back to the moral thing. Have you ever seen some of the stuff that David Mitchell's done? Yeah. Like Mitchell and Webb, and he did the one with them wearing the uniforms.
With the baddies.
The bad guys. But have you ever seen he did one and he was talking about the Vikings and how we almost downplay today what they did?
Yeah.
And he says because we will willy-nilly just say they went raping and pillaging. And then he's like, right, let's think about that. He's like, if we put those two words together and we're just kind of like, yeah, they just went out raping and pillaging. That's what they've done. They were Vikings. What did we expect? Right. But he's like, yeah, but if your son was to come in, you say, what are you up to tonight? Oh, I'm going out raping and pillaging. You'd be like, what? What are you talking about? Or if you split the two words out, yeah, I'm away out pillaging. No, you're not. Sit down. So yeah, it's like, put things into context throughout history. It's maybe some things are so close that we don't think about. No, you certainly look at some of the sieges during the 30 Years' War, and they would just go in and absolutely wipe out the whole town.
I mean, there was the classic one in the Crusades, wasn't there, where the Crusader general killed the entire town, and when somebody said some of those are Christians, he said God will sort them out when they get to heaven. So
Yeah, they had a bit of a
Different
different
world.
attitude back then.
Different world.
Well, I'd say they had a different attitude. They don't seem to. It's not seem to have changed too much these days.
So there we go. So Michael Wood,
And on that note,
Dark Ages. So what D Magdeburg on the Blue Sky. Look at me down with the kids. What cheese and wine or other drink would you recommend to accompany your festive big game? We always had mince pies. We used to do I haven't done one for a couple of years. I must start again. We always used to have mince pies and tea. It was weird. Just rebels and alcoholics. And
yeah, tea for me. I don't really drink wine.
I drink wine. I would go with a bottle of Bordeaux or a Chianti.
Nice.
Okay.
We used to. A couple of my friends. Sadly the lad that died, Dave and Tom. They used to drink like fishes when we were gaming. They'd crack through 4 tins of Guinness between each while we were having a game, and that's something I've never done. I mean, they enjoyed themselves.
Yeah,
I'm not dissing it, but it was just something that I never been a drinker. I need to concentrate on those tables. If you're cross-referencing stuff and you've had a couple of Chablis,
yeah, could run over, couldn't it? Could cost you the game.
Yeah, somebody will think, oh, he's cheating. No, he's pissed. Frederick on Blue Sky. Was Bear Dog's Rags to Riches story fabricated to boost your ratings as suggested by the Daily Mirror? Do you remember Bear Dog? No?
Nope.
It was I was going to an appointment in Knaresborough and I had to go on the train. And as I was walking along, there was a teddy bear on top of a bin.
Oh yeah, I do remember.
Yeah.
And
yes.
It haunted me. It haunted me all the way. And I thought, why is that teddy bear? And I had all these horrible stories going around in my head. And, kids have been taken into care and it's left on there. And, oh, dear me. Anyway, when I came back, it was still there. So I took it home and washed it. And he's next door at the moment. And I thought it was a bear. And then somebody pointed out it was actually a dog. What do I know? I was shit at biology. I didn't know which it was. So, yes. So, no.
Did it boost your ratings?
Did it? Nothing boost my ratings.
Yeah. Drop them off, even nothing else.
Doing podcasts on paintbrushes and 2 hours on the history of the Papal Zouaves is not how you increase your. You do bolt action. Bolt action is great, or Games Workshop is going bust. That's how you get your numbers up.
Yeah, that's how you get your ratings in.
Yeah, exactly. So good old Bear Dog, bless him. And then somebody, after I got him home and washed him, said it might have been a young kids and they've dropped it and they were going to come back for it later. And I thought, you twat. You made me feel like a bastard now.
Ruined it for you.
It's fucking dreadful now. So I'm waiting. I'm waiting now. Every time there's a knock on the door, it's like, is it the postman or is it a little kid?
A kid.
Have you got my bear dog, mister? Yeah, fuck off.
Mine now.
Yeah. This is the real world. Grow up, kid. I've got a bear dog. See that big German Shepherd there? Tear your arm off if you come in the house and try and get to him. Anyway, last question. Andy Shaw on Blue Sky. What book needs to be, or would you like to be written about your favourite subject, and who would you get to write it?
Oh my God. These questions are so hard at this time of night.
You could say Lithuanian ladies of Twitter, and you'd like to.
And who'd write it?
And you'd like to write it yourself.
Yeah, do the research yourself.
Yeah. If there are any Lithuanian ladies listening, I have the greatest respect for you and the messages that you send me, and they don't go ignored.
That one's, I don't know, that's a really hard question to answer, that.
On the Italian Wars, Wargaming the Italian Wars, written by me.
Wargaming the First World War, written by me.
To be fair, I should have written it 2 years ago, but I just couldn't. Work just meant that I just couldn't do it, and I don't think I'm ever, until I retire, I'm never going to be in a position to do it. And my big fear about doing that is idiots on the internet just get, well, you've got that wrong. You've got that wrong.
Yeah.
And my stock
You just have to ignore it.
reply, well, just fuck off then, is probably not going to help sales.
No, it's not good for the book signing.
No. Get fucked, Ken. Can you sign this? Can you sign this to my wife, Sherry? Sherry, get fucked, Ken. Anyway, there's mine.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same. But First World War, written by
First
me.
World War.
Wargame in the First World War.
Alex's First World War.
How to wargame the First World War without having to put fucking goblins
You'll
in
never guess what happens. Anti-tank guided missiles in World War One. Get Ridley Scott to do the film.
I could do, yeah. He'd have a load of elephant attacks in it, wouldn't he?
Did they have?
Did
they have elephants in World War One? Of course, they fucking had elephants in World War One. They didn't just go on holiday, did they?
There was one here in Sheffield. He used to work at the steelworks.
Work?
Because all the horses got taken for the cavalry and for the army for transport. So they got an elephant.
Yeah, but where did that come from? They didn't have them hanging around.
No,
zoo?
Yeah, zoo probably. I don't know. But yeah, they had an elephant for a few years. I can't remember which firm it was.
Is that like that bear that
that
used to fight with? I can't remember. It was a Russian unit or a German unit.
Polish
unit.
It?
That was it.
Yeah.
There's a big statue of him
Wojciech
in
or something?
Princess Street Park in Edinburgh.
That's right. It was wasn't it it was their mascot, wasn't it? But no, yeah, there was an elephant who used to work down in Sheffield, pulling steel about.
Bloody elephants coming to this country,
go.
taking our jobs. I bet you don't get many of them coming across on small boats, do you?
Certainly don't.
Yeah, they can swim though.
They can, yeah.
Can an elephant swim the channel?
It probably could, because size-wise, it's quite big, isn't it? So the channel is actually, physically smaller to it. It'd be like going up and down in Maltby swimming baths.
You'd have to give it some Haribo, though, wouldn't you, to keep it going? Oh, dear me.
That's my favourite letter to Viz, that. Look, if I see, I don't know if that's what you were referencing, but there was a letter to Viz years ago. It said it was from the head keeper at the London Zoo. He said that he's at his wit's end because all the animals are dying. They're not sure what to feed them on. They've been feeding the elephants on Haribo, but 3 of them have died so far. Do any of your readers have any suggestions what we could feed the animals?
I missed that. I did used to really enjoy Viz years ago. So.
It's a brilliant one. My favourite letter.
Well, what can I say? It's been a fantastic evening, guys. Thank you very much for your company.
Hang on, Iain didn't answer the question
about
the
book.
Well, the book.
You can't just have him on and not listen to him.
My two favourite books have probably been written, so it's quite a hard one on.
Yeah, that's my problem.
We've got Steel Bonnets and the Border Reavers, and then we've got the 45 by Christopher Duffy, and who's sadly not with us anymore. So maybe something in terms of the French Indian War by Christopher Duffy.
Well, maybe you could do. Maybe you could put Duffy's book out and put your name over his, because he's dead. He's not going to sue you.
Just with a post-it.
Yeah. Trouble is that actually by Iain.
Yeah, so we've either got that. Christopher Duffy's done it, but if I was to get, it would be a definitive book on the French Indian War. Christopher Duffy. That would have been it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, guys. Merry Christmas to you both. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Merry Christmas to all the listeners.
Indeed. Or the listener.
And a Happy New Year when it comes as well.
Oh God, yeah. You'll be. Are you going drink free New Year, Iain? We were talking before we started.
Yeah.
I
was never wasn't a big hogmanay kind of guy. A lot of football over the New Year as well. Take my son to his first football match in the second.
Which game is he going to?
Rangers v Kilmarnock.
Oh, should be an easy win, that.
he'll be bored out his tears and turned off football for the rest of his life.
Yeah. You see, unfortunately, that happened with my lad when I took him to Bradford. I should not have taken him to Bradford. I should have taken him to watch football. And he did come to a game at the start of the season with me, bless him. And he endured 90 minutes of Bradford playing shit again. But there we go, bless him. That's what sons are for, isn't it? Taking to the football.
Yeah, you got to torment them somehow.
Well, hopefully you have a fantastic time. So, Merry Christmas, everyone, and good night.
Yep. Bye.
Hi, this is Martin from episode 39 of the Yarkshire Gamers Read Big Wargames podcast. I would like to wish Ken and all the podcast listeners a happy Christmas and success with their large gaming projects in 2024.
Hi there, this is Peter Berry from Bacchus. May I wish all the listeners a brilliant Christmas and a happy 6mm based New Year.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. It was great fun doing it as always, and apologies for that mistrack on the first part of the podcast. Hopefully, it didn't spoil your enjoyment too much. Thank you once again for listening in this year. 2023, as I said at the start, has been a fantastic year for the Yorkshire Gamer podcast, and it's the number of people who listen on a regular basis. And as I said, I want to thank you all very much for doing so. I shall be at a number of shows next year, putting on display games, so come up and say hello. I shall have my blue Yorkshire Gamer t-shirt on, and I'm always happy to chat with people about the hobby, about the podcast, about whatever, and I look forward to seeing you in the new year. Until the next episode, which I haven't finalised as yet, so I'm not going to announce at this point, just in case it goes wrong. But there will be episodes, certainly one, if not two, in January of the new year, as I've got a couple held back from this year. And I look forward to 2024 having as many podcasts as I possibly can. Have a great Christmas and a happy new year. I'll see you in 24.